All right, everybody, welcome out to the Log Room Guys Craft Beer Show. It is Tuesday, March the 1st, 2022. Jersey Johnny coming at you. With me, as always, is none other than Mr. Beer Samurai eating something as usual. What's going on, Mr. Samurai?
I'm eating croquetas.
What are you eating?
Croquetas.
Croquetas.
From the Cuban place, Cortadina's, just down the road.
Right.
It's Swiss cheese, ham, deep fried. You know, all the stuff for, nice Cuban Mardi Gras.
There you go.
But yeah, Cortadino's is pretty good, and I think his brother's a lawyer. Papas? Cortadino's and Papas? Do I have that right? I don't think so.
Okay, I'm not sure. You might.
I don't know.
It's
you know
possible.
those big billboards they have here? I don't
There
think
you
so.
Yeah.
They actually just opened a Cortadino's. That was like the first one. They just opened one in the American Dream.
American Nightmare.
I think
They
so.
opened one in American Dream, really? Did they?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, it's opening. I'm not sure it's open yet, but
Gotcha.
they've got. I had empanadas for dinner. Got a couple of croquetas for snack.
So apparently, American Dream is the place to go. By the way, if you want to shop, and I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but for a reason. I was told just this past weekend that a lot of stores when you go shopping, clothes or what have you, there's the inventory, the stock in the store is kind of light.
At this place.
Yeah, American Dream has everything, and it's probably light everywhere else because American Dream has everything. So.
The candy store is chock full of stuff that you're like, oh my god, they still make that. They got a gelato place there. The gelato's heavenly. It's really, really good. But be careful. Make sure that he's not filling your cup full of air.
There you go.
Because they're just learning right now, so they're not very good at what they're doing. What the cool thing is, but I don't think they'll let us do it. You can rent these little scooters that are shaped like little stuffed animals and ride them around the mall.
Nice.
Actually, I think I've seen adults on them.
Why the hell not?
And you know what opened there?
What opened there?
A Toys R Us.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were gone.
Nope. There's a Toys R Us now there, but
and so they're back.
Yeah, that place is always crowded.
It's crazy.
Always crowded. So
anyway, what's today? There's a lot of stuff today.
Well, we know
I got a list of stuff. So
we know it's Fat Tuesday, which is appropriate
Happy
for
Fat
us.
Tuesday.
Yeah, here we are.
Perfect for us.
Also,
every Tuesday is Fat Tuesday for this show.
Yes.
So, there you go.
And almost every day is National Pig Day for this show, right?
This is true too. So, and by the way, before I got my beads on. Where are yours?
I don't have any beads. Which, like I said before the show, I don't know why I got bigger tits than you.
You do. So. You do. I had to flash to get these. They weren't just like handed to me. So I think they give them to me just like to put my shirt back on.
Yeah, I was going to say, please stop.
So, and it is also National Pig Day.
National
What
Pig
exactly does that mean, though? Explain that.
I think it's actually the animal. Not the human animal.
Well, I mean, you would think National Pig Day on Fat Tuesday, everybody's eating,
No, I actually really think it's about the animal because it actually happens on March 1st, and Mardi Gras is not always March 1st.
Oh, so today, not the Tuesday. It's just the fact that March 1st is this year's Fat Tuesday. So
just like IHOP's National Pancake Day.
Well, IHOP's National Pancake Day is March 1st every year.
Right.
But today it just so happens to be regular Pancake Day.
Because Shrove Tuesday
is eat all your breads and food and everything else now because, tomorrow's Ash Wednesday. You can't eat it anymore for 40 days anyway.
Right.
So
one of the main reasons I'm not Catholic.
There you go.
Right.
And just to round it out, you mentioned this before. I wasn't even aware. What the hell is Whoopity Scory Day?
Whoopity Scory is something that dates back to the 19th century, even maybe 18th century. Right. Legends, right? It's from like Lancar, Scotland, or Lacar, something like that. Lanark, Scotland.
All right, fair enough.
And its roots are back in being a celebration of spring coming. Days are getting a little longer. The kids can stay out a little longer, which means the parents get a friggin' break a little longer while the kids are outside playing, which they don't do today, mind you. But back in the 19th century, they didn't have. So they'd go outside and do stuff.
Yeah. Because today, they just pull up TikTok and watch a couple of whoopity scory videos.
The thing is that if they got some of the older ones from the 18th century, they get some more interesting ones because they think this may have roots in the murder of William Wallace's wife. Not sure. Mm-hmm. They also is rumors that they would take the penitents and march them around the church 3 times, whipping them the whole way, the whippity. They take them down to the River Clyde, wash them in the River Clyde, and there's your scouring them, whoopity scory.
Whoopity scory. So,
but today the way they celebrate it is they take all the kids. Oh, actually, even before that. So then later on, like the groups of boys from like all the different towns, when they all go to the church, they take their hats, wrap them up for some reason. I didn't never really get the explanation for that.
Right.
I'll have to get back in the time machine to go ask.
Please do.
And then they'd march to the church, and the boys coming from one direction would fight the boys coming from the other direction. It turned into a brawl.
So it's like, like the Jets and yeah.
Yeah. So, but now today, what
so
they
much.
do, the kids just go to the church.
We should wrap this up soon because we lost about 15 people during this.
Yeah, probably. But the kids go around the church clockwise, waving like little balls around their head, and then at the end they throw coins at them. And it used to be a race, but it's not a race anymore, and everyone gets a trophy.
Okay. So we had four days today, and we spent the most time on whoopity scory.
Well, I find it the most interesting.
There you go. I mean, fair enough. I'm sure it is.
Most things from Scotland are interesting because remember, it's not Scottish; it's crap.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, Scotch is from Scotland.
Oh, don't make me go get my bottle.
No, I'm not. I'm not in the Scotch mood tonight.
No.
So. All right. So, all right. Well, there are the days. So, before we lose anybody else, let's get someone more interesting than you and I on the show. Exactly. So, without further ado, we'll get to drinking some beer too. So, without further ado, let's bring on Mr. John Staradumsky. Right there, he is. Let me unmute his mic. There he is. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show. Did I hear somebody say beer?
Beer? I just said beer. I think we should definitely start drinking.
Oh, he's the one. He's the one in the middle.
He's the one in the middle. Yeah, yeah. There's three of them on the camera, and right there's the GOAT and Tom Brady.
Well played.
I figured you like that. So there you go. All right. So all right. Yeah. Before we get to any conversation or anything, let's crack some beers. Let's open it as Dave keeps shoving food in his mouth. John, what are you drinking tonight?
I have
for your first beer.
König Pilsner, and this is from Duisburg, Germany. They're pretty much a one-trick pony. This is their main product, but they're actually owned by Bitburger now. But one of my favorite beers. Love German beer. Love a good hoppy Pilsner, and been drinking this one since about 1988, 89. So
beautiful. It's a beautiful beer. That's for sure.
All right, lovely beer.
Love that. While he pours that, Samurai, what are you drinking?
Well, I'm doing a German style, but brewed here in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. So over the weekend, as John knows, Karen and I went to Sunken Silo down in Lebanon. And I gotta say, a great place, great people. Here we are right here, Sunken Silo. This is Black Orpheus. This is a Schwarz beer. And it's a beauty of a Schwarz beer.
I've heard that's like a dark lager.
Here's like a dark lager. It's almost some might even compare it to a Tamabe Pivo.
Yeah, but similar. It's just not Czech, German, but same. As everybody that watches the show, John, you may know I am a Schwarz beer whore. So I can drink them all day, every day, all year long. So.
What did Tony call them? Just Schwarz whores, or he had a shorter name?
Well, it's just Schwarz whores, yeah.
Schwarz whores. Because I'm the same way. If there's a Schwarz beer on the menu,
that's the first thing I'm having.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful pour there, John.
That is a beautiful pour.
That's a lovely pour.
Cheers.
So, cheers. All right. Well,
and it's got the appropriate glassware right there.
Yeah, I do try and glass match with the right brewery. So.
Well, I get close a lot, but as John knows, and most people who watch the show do know, most of my glasses are where, John?
In storage.
In a box.
In a box. There you go. I will be drinking for my first beer. I'll hold it up close because it's very minimalistic. Mini Mallard.
Mini Mallard.
Mini Mallard. It's an American pale ale. I'll put it up here from Trillium. And look at the glass I'm going to drink it into.
It's.
Oh, you can't see it.
You can't really see it. Put the beer in it. Then we can
I thought you could. I can see it fine. It's just the camera's not working lovely with it. All right, let me pour it. Here we go.
Well, John decided to go New England because he knows that you were born in New England, John, right?
Because you were born in New England. You have New England roots, and we're also, and foreshadowing, I won't say it yet, but foreshadowing our top 3 list this evening.
This is a bigger foreshadowing of it, and this was also worn because Mr. Staradumsky was on the show.
And Canton, Mass. I live in. That's the home of Dunkin' Donuts, of course, and
Of course.
birthplace. And I live in Canton, Georgia. So
You went from Canton to Canton.
I went from.
Speaking of Canton,
There you go.
right
Nice
there.
glass.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Prost.
Prost.
Prost. You know what I learned? Is if you put Prost into Google Translate and let it detect language, Prost comes up as Romanian for dumbass.
Wow.
I think it's for Dumas, actually.
No, it's actually Dumbass.
It's actually dumb ass, right?
It's actually dumbass. Never knew that.
So,
But
all right. Dumbass.
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 Double dumbass.
All right. So, let's get this party started.
Yeah, so if you're ever sitting at a table with me and we're drinking and I just launch to everybody else or Sante and I look at you and go, Prost.
Right. Well,
That's
you know
not
why.
good.
you usually look at me and say dumbass anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
That's true. I don't have to do it in
You
Romanian.
know, Romanian's not necessary for that. But in any event, all right. Let's kick it off with the first question we always ask everybody. Let's see if John can go back. I'll turn my crawl off over here. See if John can go back and remember this one. Do you remember, or it can be an ish, what the first craft beer you ever had? Craft or craft-ish, or it can be, if you want to say, if you want to go back to a German style or some import that fits the bill, for today. Just not a macro beer.
What turned you on to better beer?
What turned you on to better beer? Right?
Well, what turned me on to better beer? This is an interesting story, and then I'll get into the first craft beers. But I as I said, I have an affinity and fondness for German beer, and all the way back to '82. Of course, the most readily available German beers then were Pauly Girl and Beck's, and I used to drink those. And a good buddy of mine, I went over to his house, and his brother had this collection of beer bottles on a shelf on his wall, and I thought, that's a really cool idea, right? And I said, I'm going to do that. And as I did, I started to try every different beer that I could get my hands on, which in 1982 was not a wide selection.
Not so much.
But it did get me trying all these different beers, and I thought, hey, this one's cool and this one's cool. And there was a liquor store not far from my house in West Warwick, Rhode Island, called Max Liquors. I ended up working there about 10 years later, and it was probably the best job I ever had in my life, as far as having not so much on the pay, but for the fun factor, it was great. He had at the time, early 80s, Anchor, Sierra Nevada. I want to say Sierra Nevada Porter was probably one of the very first craft beers that I ever tried.
Oh, nice.
We got Boulder in those days. He had Sam Smith's and Chimay, which a few years later, there was this old crotchety guy that worked there named Willie, and he called it Chimmy beer, right? It was Chimmy. And he'd have a cigarette in his mouth at all times, and he says, "Hey, kid, have you tried this Chimmy beer? You got to buy this Chimmy beer." So I had no choice; I had to buy the Chimmy beer. So, and that was a game changer. Chimay was like, wow, what is this stuff? This is simply amazing. So
Yeah, it's crazy good.
the rest was history. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's we've had so many different. We at the age we're at, we've had a couple of people on the show. Much younger. If you will, and when they start talking about beers that have only been around for 10 years as their first craft beer, it's fun, but it's great though, So I love the fact that, and we've talked about this on the show before. I love the fact that there's so many, for a while there wasn't. Now there's a lot more, younger people, getting into craft beer.
Yes.
At a much younger age. And like, for instance, this beer that I'm drinking actually now was given to me on this past Saturday by my younger daughter's boyfriend. So,
Wow.
He's 24 and he's a craft beer nut. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and it's not even just NAIPAs.
And it's exactly. And he's drinking everything. He's drinking Belgians. He's drinking stouts, barrel-aged stouts. He's not just going for the pastries and all of that stuff. He's really doing it right. So and my daughter loves them too, but she tends to gravitate towards fruited sours and kettle sours and that. But so be it. That's fine.
Yeah,
but-
my daughter's same way. My sons are not really, every once in a while they'll drink a beer, but my daughter is more interested in it. She's 32. Her boyfriend is really into it. He loves the barrel aged stuff and the stouts, but it's so good to see that, because that's what's going to keep craft beer going.
Absolutely.
Is
Absolutely.
the introduction of new drinkers and and more women into the hobby.
Amen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My older daughter, she's 28. Her and her boyfriend, they're same thing, and my son's going to be 22 this year, so he's just getting into it, But we'll leave it at that. But in any event, but he's loving it too. So I'm definitely happy about that. But it's not just them. It's the whole that whole. What's the word I'm looking for? Help me out here, Dave.
I have no idea where you're going with that. Generation?
Generation. There
Okay.
you go.
Wow, you lost
Who was in my
easy
mind?
one.
I'm like talking about my
Yeah, that's why you started to stutter.
right. So anyway, but it's great.
My son's going to be 21, but he's been in Italy for over a year, where I think it's drinking age is 18, but he doesn't drink.
And every single person that Dave knows is shocked.
Yeah, he just doesn't. He doesn't drink.
He doesn't drink.
My younger son, when he comes of age, probably will, but not the older one.
There you go. Yeah. All right, John. What started you? Let's go back to you were a columnist for Yankee Brew News.
Yes.
Back in the day. What started you? What started you down that road, writing and so forth and so on.
Well, I love to read about beer. In fact, back in the early days, probably in the mid 80s or so, on the Rhode Island craft beer scene, we got Samuel Adams beer started to show up a little bit before other parts of the country. First the Boston Lager, and then when we were really lucky, the Double Bock and the Winter Lager. And I still say that in those early days, those beers they're still good today, but they were in their prime. They didn't come in the regular 6-pack holders. They came in boxes, which was really cool.
Right.
Sort of like Black and Voodoo. You might have seen
Right.
it
Yeah.
in the boxes.
Double Bock was a really good beer.
Double Bock, I couldn't get enough of.
It's such a good
in
beer.
those days. But the more I kept those beers came out, and I kept drinking them, I wanted to learn more, and then I started to read everything I could get my hands on. So this all about beer back in those days.
That's Charlie, ain't it?
No, that's Michael Jackson.
That's
It's Michael.
Yeah,
That's back when they actually looked alike.
And I would read a lot of Jackson's stuff, and I was, who is this guy? He's phenomenal, right? And this was in the days when All About Beer was published by Mike and Bunny Bozak, and it wasn't, at first it wasn't what we would consider today all about craft beer. A lot of it was about imports, but they wrote about what was available at the time, and it was that hunger for more and more knowledge, more beer, more different beers. It was in every page of the magazine. So I kept reading that. Then I started reading Jackson's books and some Fred Eckhart, James D. Robertson, Conrad Seidel, whatever I could find. I was reading it, and I was like, this is really great. And I started taking tasting notes, and I think that was the first step to want to do more and write about beer. And of course, in '89, Jackson came out with his Beer Hunter series, and that was a game changer because nobody had ever done anything like that before, a TV series about beer, really. Yeah. And he focused on 6 different countries and their specialty beers, and that was great. And it just happened that I just I hung out with the right crowds. I was hanging out with brewers, and probably mid to late 90s, I was pouring beer at the New England Real Ale Exposition. And somebody from Yankee Brew News came up, and they just happened to mention that, they were going to have a slot open for Rhode Island. And actually one of my friends introduced him to me and recommended, that I might be interested. And I took him up on it, and it was great. So, that lasted maybe 2-3 years. I wrote the bi-monthly column, and then I wrote some articles here and there. Actually, I covered a beer dinner on Jackson that I went to that was really cool because it was about an hour long. It was in Orange, Connecticut, and my buddy, it was Doug, and I went down, and we had a ball. And after it was over, like a lot of the people that were there had been sent because their employers, they worked at liquor stores and restaurants, and their employers felt that they might benefit from it, and they all skedaddled, right? So as soon as it was over, so we hung around in the back and drank beer, and just talked about beer with Jackson. And it was like,
Great.
it was like we're talking right now. He was like, he was just so down to earth, and he would ask probing questions about what you were talking about. So he was clearly interested in it, because he wasn't just listening and nodding. He was, we were talking about the Sunset Tap and Grill, for example, and he's like, well, how do those multi-tap establishments turn over enough beer and all that? And it was just, it sticks out to me to this day. And just some really lucky for me events. I went to Oldenburg's beer camp and covered that in a story. And it was just a fun time.
Oh, geez,
now, when you were writing for them, what breweries were open in Rhode Island?
There weren't many. It was mainly the brew pubs. Coddington,
Right.
Union Station, Trinity.
Union Station, sure.
Right. Narragansett, of course.
Narragansett wasn't open yet.
Narragansett was,
No.
yeah, there was they were just contracting out of Genesee.
They hadn't even
Like the whole time.
reestablished yet.
No, they were okay.
Yeah, it was a year or two after I
after,
moved
okay.
that they reopened. Coastal Extreme, they were it's Newport Storm. I think it's Newport Distillery and craft beer now.
Yes, they are.
But
And they just keep changing the name of that one.
Yeah.
yeah, they do. Yeah, but they're
New branding.
yeah. Well, it works for them, I guess.
There you go.
But
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, all of the beer dinners and everything else to have sat there, that's just amazing. It really is. What was the your favorite thing that you wrote for Yankee Brew News?
Oh, the Jackson beer dinner.
The Jackson beer dinner.
Yeah,
You can imagine.
absolutely. That was, although beer camp was a lot of fun too.
Sure.
Yeah. So
That's awesome. I got. I'll actually have to track that down. I'm sure they. I got to find it somewhere. I'm sure you have a copy, but
yeah, I have digital, and I think I can send you some links.
yeah, send it along. I'd love to read it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely.
Yeah, if you don't mind, we'll post it up on the website.
Sure. Send it. We'll put it right up. Absolutely.
I wrote one on ringwood yeast that was a lot of fun too, because ringwood yeast is the yeast everybody loved to hate, and now it's not even that it's very difficult to find a beer other than Shipyard. I think Middle Ages might still be brewing with ringwood, but even in those days in craft beer fandom circles, people really hated it. It tends to throw off a lot of diacetyl, and you either love that or you hate it, and I always love that. I think it imparts a unique, as long as it's not, overdone. I think Gary's does too still, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say, I believe
you're right. I believe you're right. Gary's does. Yeah. We had a conversation with, when we had the conversation with Nick and from Bellflower. We were talking about Geary's and Shipyard, both obviously up in Portland as well. Bellflower's in Portland. They just opened a couple of years ago. We had them on the show in September. We were talking about the Ringwood yeast.
I wouldn't be surprised to find out that Sea Dog use Ringwood.
Yeah, Sea Dog is part of Shipyard.
Yeah,
they were independent originally, and they also were. That's why
Shipyard acquired them, and
that would explain all the diacetyl in the beer.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Gary's was my first. Another fun story. This was before Gritty's opened. Gritty McDuff's was my first brew pub up in Portland, and still my favorite. They're Ringwood. But I was in a little convenience store looking for some Sam Adams, and I was up there with my wife, and this guy is, another crusty old New Englander with an exterior as tough as a log, right? And he's like, "You want Sam Adams?" He's like, "I got something better than Sam Adams for you," and he plops a 6-pack of Gary's Pale Ale down on the counter. I'm like, "Oh, I'm sold," and once again, the rest is history. I just love that beer from that point forward. So that was so fun.
That's great. That's absolutely great. I got a couple comments from Doug Smith, a weekly listener to the show. Here we go. Doug says, "The Bruguru is a true beer OG. I credit him for turning me on to the beer hunter who opened my eyes to the world of craft beer." And then he continued with, "Don't forget Emerald Isle Beer Works Bruguru, a visionary cask ale brewery."
Yep, he's absolutely right. Actually, Jackson toured that brewery once, and I am kicking myself for missing that. But we had some fond memories of Emerald Isle. They did cask ales, at a time when we at that time we called it a niche market of a niche market, right? And it was
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was too it was just too small a clientele base for them to survive. Today, I think maybe they would do a little better, but they had a number of bars in Rhode Island that they distributed to, beer on the hand pump, and I did a little website for them in exchange for beer. I will work for beer is my motto, just one of them. So yeah, but they were great.
There's many people in this business that have done just that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
you don't
there's-
work for money, that's for sure.
There's 3 people on this podcast who have
Yeah.
done just that.
So, but in any event, that's great. I love like waxing nostalgic about all of that. It's just great. All right, so what? Let's talk about let's fast forward a little bit. We're going to go back because I definitely want to wax a little bit more nostalgic on some things. But let's fast forward to Bruguru.com. You just mentioned websites and stuff like that. So when did you first put that site up?
That was 2006. I believe that's when I first put the website up. I had a more rudimentary one before that without my own web hosting, probably from the late 90s on. I used to write beer reviews and actually electronics reviews for a site called opinions.com.
Sure.
The latter actually paid pretty good money and allowed me to buy more beer. So I was pretty cool.
That works.
Then I could write the beer reviews that I like to write. Right?
There you go. Right.
But after a while, the audience there kind of fell off, especially for beer. And I said, you know what, I'm going to look into Yahoo web hosting and maybe put my own site together. And I did, and it's morphed a bit over the years. I've got almost 3,000 beer reviews on there. I try to give my impressions of the beer, my tasting notes, a little color commentary, as Tom is famous for and likes to talk about, and recently in the past 10 years or so, photos from my digital camera of the beer.
Nice. But
I've always said that it's something that I've had to reformat a couple. In fact, I'm in the process of reformatting now for mobile, which is a little laborious because I write my own code for it. But
that's a great undertaking. It's
I've always said I do it for me. Sometimes I've made money over the years on it, enough to pay the web hosting fees and maybe just a 6-pack or 2 a year besides that. But what I like is that I can go back and read a review, and I've got tasting notes from the 90s. Some really fondly recalled beers. I know the Sweetwater's doing a bunch of hempen ales lately, and I think New Belgium did one before that. And what people don't remember, or you guys probably do, but many folks don't, is that's nothing new because Frederick did a hempen ale in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
I can go back and run to my tasting notes and say, hey, I had that beer, and it's kind of like
That's a question for you, John. Have you ever gone back to one of your old reviews, read your review, you've had the beer since, you're like, my palate's changed a little bit. There's things I missed, or my palate's developed a bit. There's things I missed, and gone back and redone it based on either changes from the brewery or changes in your own palate.
Oh, absolutely. So I've learned, as we all do over the years, but the palette changes. You pick up things maybe that you didn't. I don't necessarily rewrite what was there before, but I do add updates.
Okay.
So that way I retain the original, and you can compare. And a lot of times it's true that the brewery changes. The beer changes from the brewery.
It's not definitely just your palate.
Right.
It's either it's not just one or the other. It's probably a little of both. So
yes.
Yeah, it's rare that a recipe is going to stay completely unchanged.
Right. I mean,
a decade.
if we're talking about Weihenstephan or Hef,
yeah.
that beer's not changed.
Yeah,
That's the same thing.
We've said it many times on the show. We think they've dialed in.
Almost 1,000 years old. That recipe, it's probably dialed in by now. But yeah, newer breweries and everything else. Yeah, there's probably a little bit of both. Palate changing.
This Koenig taste. I mean, the first time I ever had Koenig Pilsner was on draft at Koenig City. At the time, you couldn't even get it in bottles yet in Rhode Island, and they flew the kegs in on Lufthansa. They were super fresh.
Oh wow!
And it tastes. I mean, maybe not quite as good as the draft did, but it's remarkably similar to what I used to get in those days. Eventually, we got it in bottles, and I'd have that at home all the time, right next to the Sam Adams double box.
I'm almost jealous because one of my favorite beers back in the day was Pilsner Urquell.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then, if you remember, when the Iron Curtain fell, when the wall came down and the SSRs all broke up, communism was gone, and they could modernize, Urquell took out their wood tanks, they put it in stainless steel. And to me, the beer is still a great beer, but not like it was in the day.
Not what it was. Yeah.
Not like it. Yeah.
Oh my God, that beer was so damn good. I mean, because so much of the hops had leached into the wood that grassy hop presence that you got was just so much. I wouldn't say more powerful, but it was just more indelible.
The wood was part of the beer. The wood was part of the beer, and that's gone. So
it's
still delicious by
so many standards.
But yeah, absolutely. But yeah, what it was they won't get it back because I'm sure those. Yeah, exactly. So,
when I was working at Max Liquors there in the mid 90s or so, we had a guy that lived right across the street, and he made multiple trips to Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia. And he ordered a keg of Pilsner Urquell one time, and he was having a party. And he's like, well, came in, he picked it up. He's like, well, when you get off, why don't you come over and have some? And this was in like January, February in Rhode Island. It was freezing, but we were all that keg.
It's a nice balmy day, right?
Oh yeah, well, yeah, it was beef for us, but it was unbelievable how good that keg was, and we were just standing around it. Nobody wanted to move from that keg, drinking that beer, and it was that's the best Pilsner Urquell I've ever. You get it on tap or you get it in the bottles, and the characters change, but depending on how old it is, it's not a beer that's going to last very well. So
sure,
you got keg, you've got cans, and one show John and I were talking. We had a guest on. They were talking about, I can't remember where this. I guess it was from Denver, right? Talking about how they did. One of the breweries in Denver does 4 different tasters of the same beer poured 4 different ways.
It's different pour flights. They have the different faucets on their tap stack, and they have so they'll give you different foam pours basically, so you can have the same beer. It's the brewery's talking about is Cohesion Brewing.
That's a Cohesion.
They're not even open a year. They opened last May, I think, April or May last year. They're coming up on their year anniversary, and they do nothing but Czech lagers. That's the only thing they brew at the brewery is Czech lagers. That's it. And they will do. You get a flight of. I mean, they have different Czech lagers. Obviously, they'll have Tmavy Pivos and so forth and so on. But as far as you can get one beer poured 3 different ways in a flight. So you can have your different foam flights and stuff like that, and they do foam shots too, which is another up and coming thing in certain breweries. I mean, what did you have? Oh, you had a milk pour, right?
That's called a milk tube.
A milk tube
at Human Robot in Philadelphia, and it's a tall stange, and it's just a straight up foam pour. They only charge $2 for it, which is probably still more than they should, but it's a nice because it's just foam. It's really and I looked at this. I'm seeing people shoot these things, and I'm like, well, this is really gimmicky, but I can't say that I'm really into craft beer if I don't at least try this.
Got to try it, yeah.
So I got it, put it down. I'll have another one of those because you just get all the beautiful flavor of the beer.
Sure.
And you're not. Getting minimal amounts of alcohol, so you can drink these all night and just get that flavor. And it was pretty neat. But yeah, it's gimmicky, but I did enjoy it. I gotta say,
they're calling them milk tubes, and that's a Human Robot. That was in Philly, right?
That's a Human Robot,
yeah. They're in Cohesion out in Denver, and a few other breweries out there. They're calling them foam shots. Same basic principle.
But are they shot glasses?
No. They're a little. No. They're not shot glasses. They're bigger.
Okay.
They're not. I don't know if it's a full stange, but it's.
No, this thing was a double stange. They're about this big.
Right. Yeah.
So it's tall.
It's amazing what they're doing out there. But you talk about those beers. You talk about Pilsner Urquell or anything else like that. Going back to Germany and beers like that. I love every Oh geez, there's nothing that there's no styles I hate, right? But there's I have an affinity for darker beers, box and darker, and one of my favorites, and I'm a huge alt beer, Sticko alt beer fan, and Urige is one of my favorites, and I just bring this up because we were just talking about Portland. Dave and I were in Portland, at Navarre Res.
I'm probably the only person who ever had a negative experience in Navarre Res.
It was the first time. It was his first trip to Navarre Res. It was like I've been there a bunch of times before, but it was his first trip to Navarre Res. And I guess due to supply chain and the pandemic and everything else, they had a lot of beer that was on their list that they were out of. They hadn't been replaced and so forth and so on. It's from the bottle list and everything else. And as he's looking and he's asking the bartender for, I'll have this. No, we're out of it. I'll have this now. I ordered a Urige Sticko Alt, and she went back and got it for me, and she comes out with it. Dave's like, finally, you know what? I'll have one too. She's like, nope, that was the last one. So,
everything I ordered.
So I did the right thing, and I split it with him. Split it like 20-80.
But I did appreciate
I gave him a little of it. So.
It's interesting because I'm a big fan of German dark lagers too. Doppelbocks are my favorite style of beer of all. I was at a few years ago. I was at pre-COVID at Helen Oktoberfest here, Helen, Georgia. It's really like a little alpine village right in the middle of the North Georgia mountains.
That's great.
And they have a beer hall, and they have the German bands, and they have beer, and I get there, and of course I go up to get my first beer, and I'm in line, and I see Hackenschor Animator, which is never been able to find it.
Really?
Always wanted it. I was in heaven, and I'm standing in line, and the guy before me orders one, and just as his mug is being poured, the keg kicks. It got like a half of. I'm like, no, I'm in hell. Please, somebody help me. This is just. But,
that's awful.
Yeah,
so they couldn't just hold it and let it spit into the glass and
I
blow
would
up when I'll never find it.
Just
a little bit of foam,
the kegs so I can try it.
That's great. That sucks though. Yeah, my one of my favorites, one of my OGs, if you will, is Aventinus. Is the Weizenbach. The Weizendoppelbock. It's just such a good beer. It's one of those things where if for some reason I'm somewhere, and it's very few, you rarely ever see it on tap. But if I ever go in anywhere and there's Aventinus on tap, doesn't matter what else is on tap. That's what I'm having first. Yeah. So, and it's 8-point-something%. It doesn't matter.
A good evening.
Give me that first. That's number one. In case it kicks, I want it now. And I might finish with it too, but give me first one. So
yeah, but of all those legendary German beers, my favorite has always been Kostritzer. Mm-hmm. I love my Schwarz beers. Mm-hmm. Somewhere in a box, I have the glass, but love the Schwarz beers and love Kostritzer. That's
a great one.
Yeah.
And we're talking about this though, and I want to ask you this, John. What's your opinion on this? I'd say in the last year, maybe a little longer, there's been a real resurgence of Schwarz beer brewing in American craft beer breweries, and for that matter, Tomave Pivos too, dark Czech lagers as well. And I'm seeing them more and more and more and more and more. And I'm in heaven. I'm loving it. It's just there's so many breweries that you wouldn't even think that would even, like 4 or 5 years ago, wouldn't even think about brewing one, let alone put it on the brew schedule, let alone actually brew it. They're coming out with them. I've had probably in the last year, I've probably had 2 or 3 dozen Schwarz beers or dark Czech lagers that I've from breweries that I never would have expected them to brew it, and they've been phenomenal too. They've been really tasty.
Yeah,
it's getting so prevalent that a brewery in New Jersey, whose one of their first core beer was a dark wheat, they turned into primarily an NEIPA lineup for cans brewery,
and pastry stouts. Don't forget
and pastry stouts here and there. So they went with the crowd. They're actually reintroducing their dark wheat.
It was definitely when they first opened. It was definitely the best beer they brewed, and it was the first one to fall off their list.
we've kind of come full cycle where everybody's looking to do something new, and everybody's doing the New England IPAs and the West Coast IPAs, which the modern West Coast IPA with the fruit forward hops, as opposed to the classic American West Coast IPA from the 90s, which is the resiny, citrusy,
resiny,
piney.
absolutely.
In North Carolina, those ones are coming back like no tomorrow.
Yeah.
Really?
I'm loving it.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
I'm in August. I'm going to be in Asheville. So
yeah. Asheville is amazing. But you see breweries starting to put out those, the Schwartz beers, and I've seen a few table beers.
Table
beers are
almost
coming
never
around.
see those, right?
Yeah.
We've got a couple of breweries here in Georgia, Tucker and Iron Shield, that specialize in European style German beers, English beers. And I think it's the wheel is always moving, and everybody's always looking for something. And there's always a market out there. Somebody wants those double box and those Oktoberfests and those styles that a lot of breweries have eschewed, so they can have 20 different IPAs on tap.
Tell us more about the craft beer scene in northern Georgia.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, Georgia is great. We've got one of probably my favorite Georgia brewery is Three Taverns. And they have a really great brew house near Atlanta. It's in Decatur, and the brewer is I think he's the nephew of the Belgian. He's from Belgium, and he's the nephew of the Belgian brewer from New Belgium.
See, that would be great if they did the Doppelbock, because they could call it Indicator.
Yeah, I to be honest with you, I've never seen that, but I think that's a great idea.
They should do that.
We should shoot it their way. But there's the two I mentioned previously. I got Reformation near me that has 3 locations now, and they do great imperials. They do a lot of IPAs, but they do a fantastic imperial stout called Declaration. They're just all over the place. Sooner or later, they're going to have what you like. They had a very nice black IPA, which I prefer to call India Dark Ale, right? Because you can't be a black IPA. You can't be black and pale.
India Dark Ale. I like that. Yeah, there you go.
India Dark Ale was actually what New Amsterdam from New York called their initial interpretation of the style, and you had the first one was Night Watch Ale. I don't like Cascadian Dark because the style originated in New England, in Vermont, not on the Pacific Northwest. So,
right. But it was named after the hops that were used.
Yeah, I mean it's semantics, but sometimes
right.
Yeah. So, but I see lots of really great beers coming from them, and you got Grumpy Old Men, which was started by a couple of grumpy old men a little bit further north.
Wait, did the 3 of us start it?
Yeah.
I forgot.
Well, yeah.
I'm only grumpy because I'm out of beer.
Yeah, well, that's a good reason.
Let me fix
Hold that thought. That's not a bad idea. Why don't we open up our third beer
fix-
and
let
then
me fix
continue
that.
with the Georgia beer scene after that? Because I finished my mini Mallard, and I could go for
A full Mallard?
I could go for a full Mallard. Yeah. What John? What are you drinking second? Or are you still working on?
Well, he filled.
I've been talking too much. I need to let you guys talk more. And I've got an interesting one from
We talk plenty.
Chattanooga.
While we're pouring, you drink.
There you
I'm
go.
gonna pour.
What are you pouring?
I gotta turn it around. This thing. Cane Sneak Box.
Cane Sneak Box. You're pouring Cane Sneak Box. Let me put it up. He's pouring
American
Cane Sneak Box from Cane Brewing. He's pouring Cane Sneak Box. Interesting. I'll leave that alone. As you pour your Cane Sneak Box.
I love these tall can glasses.
These tall can. Let me see that tall can glass that you just poured the Cane Sneak Box into. Very nice. Very nice. So, that is a beautiful tall can glass that you poured that Cane Sneak Box into.
It's a beautiful beer too.
There you go. Well, it's a 5.4% American Pale Ale from
Very
Cane Brewing.
very juicy.
There you go. All right. All right, let me grab mine. Hold on. Talk amongst yourselves.
I'm going to sneak off.
Or drink amongst yourselves.
There you go.
We just lost
he just went.
He went to the
either going to the bathroom or he went to hide behind Sam Adams.
No, I think he hit a beer fridge. It sounded like a beer fridge.
That's my office beer fridge. So.
The office beer fridge. How many beer fridges do you have?
I have 3. I have a full-size garage beer fridge, And then I have 2 dorm ones, one in the bedroom and one in my office / guest bedroom, in case a guest wants a beer or I can't get to the other 2 and want one. There's one in my bedroom. So.
I actually am a couple of, and I didn't even tell you, Dave. I'm actually about a week away from having a beer fridge in this office.
Very nice.
Yes. So it should
I've
be
got mine's right there.
So there you go.
I guess this is an office sort of.
My second beer
the back of the living room.
Yeah, my second beer is right here. One of my favorites from Allagash.
That's a good beer.
That's a delicious beer right there. North Sky. Again, going all New England tonight. So give this a pour.
I'm actually all Jersey today.
You are all Jersey today.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And I actually started off with a lager.
Yeah, I've been drinking lagers. Today is the first day in probably about a month and a half. Probably.
Yeah, I was going to say it's been about 6 shows since you didn't drink a lager.
That I didn't drink a lager. But
Bruguru and I started off with lagers.
Yes, you both did. So anyway, and cheers. Right there.
Cheers.
Prost.
Prost to you too.
Prost to you too, right?
Prost and cheers.
So what do you?
Moon pie. Oh God.
There you go.
This is moon pie, chocolate moon pie style. It's brewed by it's actually brewed on draft for a little brewery up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which is where moon pies originated, in Chattanooga. For the cans, they contract to a brewery here in Georgia, which is mostly they're a contract animal. That's pretty much all they do. But this isn't the first can I've popped of it. It's Naked River is the brewery in Chattanooga. It's 8%, and it does taste like a moon pie. They use graham cracker. There's a little marshmallow type vanilla in there, and you get the chocolate. So if you stretch your palate out a little bit and go with the theme, it's kind of like drinking a moon pie.
Isn't there a little? Was the moon pie that has a little bit of banana flavor to it, or
they do make banana? I'm sure that's going to be another beer that they roll out. So.
Well, I'll catch up on a couple of comments, John, while you pour that beer. Doug Smith commented right here, Bruguru will we call Black Wit and Trinity Brewhouse Scharzweiss, a black Hefeweizen.
Yeah, that those were Black Wit. Actually, there was a beer called Wit, which was it was a contract, if I recall correctly, and they tried to roll out a popular wit that they could push on the mass market, and they came out with Black Wit, which of course means black white, which is kind of a oxymoron, right? And then the Schwarzweiss, which we would Doug and I would go to Trinity, and whenever it was on, we would shout choruses of Schwarzweiss, right? And it means the same thing. It means black white, right? But it's in German. And again, it's kind of but it was a Dunkelweizen, or really like a black Weizen.
That's
really
funny.
Roasty.
And he continued to say, we are indeed coming full circle. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm loving every minute of it.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. So how was the moon pie? Let's see it.
It is hard to see, but I got it in a Yazoo glass, which is one of my favorite Tennessee breweries.
There you go.
You get a nice,
creamy,
nice. Beautiful.
There you go. Anyway,
we get cheers again. Okay, we'll do cheers
again. Sláinte, Prost, Chindan.
Yeah.
There you go.
Chin chin.
Chin chin.
Snack cake time.
Mm-hmm. There you go. All right. So back to Georgia. You mentioned a few breweries. I pulled up Untapped really quick because I know I've had a couple of hold on one second. I know I've had a couple of Three Taverns things. I'm trying to find where they were, but my Untapped is not working properly with me. But anyway, continue what your the beer scene in Georgia.
Yeah, so there's a number of good. When I first moved here in 2001, you couldn't get a beer over 6%, which was a problem.
It's kind of like Ohio is the same way. They in fact they were lower than that, I think.
Yeah, Alabama, Mississippi. There are several states that
Utah.
There was a movement called Pop the Cap that started in. I don't think it started in Georgia, but we were one of the first states to remove it, and it was crazy because you can go and buy a bottle of Mad Dog 2020, no problem, but you can't buy a beer that's 10%.
Right.
And of course, there were a lot of people that were opposed to it. But really, one of the biggest breweries down here is Sweetwater. They're one of the originals.
Absolutely.
Atlanta Brewing Company's the first Georgia craft brewery. But Sweetwater had a couple of beers that were over 6%. There was a brewery called Dogwood when I moved down here that was just absolutely phenomenal. They were brewing stuff as good as what I left up in New England, and he was brewing a Christmas beer, Dogwood Winter Brew, that would alternate, and it was a Weizenbock one year and a Doubleback another year, and I said, this stuff can't be under 6%. And the brewer's name was Crawford Moran. He went on to brew for 5 seasons, brew pub chain, and he's like, nobody's coming from the state with a hydrometer to check on this stuff. He's like, I can tell you that this stuff is, I'm going to tell you because you're not going to tell anybody because then that'll shut off your 8% Weizenbock, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it was finally they changed the law, and there was a big party, and the rest is history.
Yeah, exactly.
But, are there any states that still have that?
Well, I don't think so. I know Alabama went shortly after we did. Ohio, that still you can't get anything over 14% in Georgia, which is silly. But most of that stuff I can buy from Craft Shack or whatever. But
sure.
But one of the other good things here though is draft and Taco. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Taco Mac, but Taco Mac is a chain of about 29 sports bars, restaurants, wings. The guys that founded it came down from Buffalo, New York, with their wing recipes in early 70s or mid 70s. Opened their first location in Virginia Highlands, and just about every location has 100 taps. And really great wings. And I go there on Sundays. If this year I had NFL Sunday ticket, but some years it's actually cheaper to go to Taco Mac. A lot of the Patriots games, which is what I go to see, are televised down here. And if they're not, well, you know what? I'll take that $400 a year and go buy beer and wings with it.
There you go.
Exactly. TV wants, right? But they have a program called the Bruniversity, where you get the more beers you drink, you get rewards and things like that. So it's really fun. They feature a lot of great local beers. They bring in stuff from out of state, and it really has fostered the draft market here because they do a beer of the month with one brewery, sometimes with 2 breweries, which is nice because they'll pick two small local breweries that maybe couldn't produce enough kegs for 30 locations to do a month of special, and so they'll split it between 2. But that in turn fostered a very vibrant growler and crowler market where we have here in Canton there's a growler shop, and they have about 30 really good beers on at all times, and you can go get a crowler or a growler filled, and they fill growlers here in gas stations and supermarkets and liquor stores. Everywhere you can, it's really easy to get good craft beer in a growler or a crowler. So I think those are some of the best aspects. We've got good breweries. We've got subpar breweries too, and mediocre breweries, but I think that's the case everywhere. There's so many breweries opening up that, not everybody is going to be doing a good job, but there's definitely a market for it here.
But what I've found is when you have those breweries that don't make the best beer, they still have their followings because they're the local brewery.
Yep.
Right.
And as we see more and more breweries open to the point where, not every town per se, but every little small region within a state has their own brewery.
Right.
You're starting to see things get towards more what it was like back in the day in Germany, where every town had its brewery and everyone went there. That was the social center of the town, was the actual brewery.
Yep.
England had the pubs, not the brewery so much. The breweries sent to the pubs. Everyone went to the public houses. That's what pub is short for. Remember the first day I realized that. Oh, pub is short for public.
Yeah.
Duh. But seeing what's happening here now, I don't know if our breweries will ever get to the point where they're all making their own exact style and it's named after the town they're from. I don't think that's going to happen because we're getting to the point where you can only do so many things with water, malt, hops and yeast to develop a whole new style. But there's somehow or another they're still trying it. We're still seeing new styles come every now and then.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's okay, right? I mean, I don't know if you guys remember Burt Grant's Brewery from Yakima, Washington, but in the '90s, I remember going up to East Providence and Town Wine and Spirits. No, it wasn't Town. It was I can't think of the name. It's been a while, but they brought in Grant's beers. That was the first place I ever went to, and I tell you what, they were phenomenal. Burt Grant was a very idiosyncratic brewer, and he said even back then that the brewer needs the latitude to brew whatever the hell he wants, to do whatever he wants with any style, to invent new styles. People don't like it, they won't buy it, and they'll stop making it. But he had,
which is what a pilot batch system is for.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So,
exactly.
I mean, it's great. New styles are great. If I don't like them, I won't drink them. But if I like them, then hey,
absolutely.
Yeah, but they have to try, right?
Yep.
You never know when you're going to hit on something that's just going to take off.
And if you're going to do something crazy, I'm going to try it because it's something I haven't had before. And you get tired of, it's another double New England IPA.
All right. Yeah, exactly.
There's
only so many things you can do with those beers.
They threw Yukonot into this one. Awesome.
But we have to blame ourselves for it too, because
it's true.
There's nobody more fickle than a craft beer drinker, and that's been true since the hobby started. We're always moving on. Always want something new.
What's new? But if you just hope that there's enough people out there that still want to go back to what they love, and everybody's going to want something new. Everybody's going to want to try something new. That's just human nature. But you always want to go back to you don't want that person that 5 years from now says, oh, I had that one whatever style, I had that 6 years ago, according to Untapped, I had 6 years ago. I don't need to ever have it again. No, you don't. That's not
unless you didn't like it.
Well, I'm a big repeat drinker.
Story, I'm a huge repeat drinker. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If I know I like something, I'm having it again. I'm going to. Yeah.
I don't understand the point.
Put
that back up.
How much of that do I drink?
How much of what? The
cane
sneak box?
No. Carton boat.
Yeah.
Carton boat. A lot of that.
Yes, you do.
That's probably the most annoying thing to me is the tickers out there that. Oh, I had it once. Never want to drink it again.
Never drink it again. That's ridiculous.
What's the point?
If you had something that you hated, fine. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I understand it. That's fine. Move on.
Or even didn't thrill you.
It didn't thrill you, or whatever.
Yeah.
If it was borderline and you want to try it again or whatever, somebody's having it, fine.
Well,
give it a go. But
sometimes I'll go back to a beer if I knew that when I tried it, I had like 3 beers before it and my palate was probably wrecked. Let's give this another shot.
A lot of people got to realize that too. There's, if you're drinking a lot of beer and whatever you had before may very well have affected your palate for that next beer. You really got to give it another try.
Yeah. For that reason, I usually don't take any tasting notes after 3 beers. I'll wait and have the beer again. On rare occasions 4 if the first beer was very light or something, but you do get that palate fatigue, and you can't fairly judge the beer and trust your palate to take notes down and say, oh well, I didn't like this, or sometimes maybe I do like it, but maybe I like it too much because I had 3 good ones already, right? So if you want to be honest with your audience, then and people, after you have had quite a few different beers and people get to know that, they trust your opinion, and you have an obligation to them, I think, to be honest with them.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And,
We throw another comment up from Doug Smith. He said, Bruguru, can you let the guys know about your South Jersey Philly roots and your experiences with the Philly beer scene?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I think pre-show, that my dad was born in Philly. He actually grew up when the Ortley Brewery was resurrected as Poor Henry's by Henry Ortley. We went there with my dad, had a few beers, and loved the place, of course. But he grew up right across the street from it, so we did a little bit of a Philly beer tour. I just love Victory. We'll always love Victory.
Sure.
It was hard as hell to find the place. And actually, the first time I went there, my dad came. He was there too. My kids, my wife at the time, and this was before GPS, and we were having such a problem. And my father was always who he was, and we go in there, and he's got a T-shirt on and a pack of cigarettes rolled up in one of the sleeves, and he walks up to the bar and says, "You owe this kid a beer," because this place was hard as hell to find. And, but
that's great.
It was everybody laughed, and they gave me a beer. So thanks, Dad, for that one. But yeah, I love Philly.
Yeah.
I just
a score on that one. Yeah, yeah.
The
the Philly beer scene is pretty great. I mean, there's a lot of newer breweries opening up too, but there's always been a bunch that have been around.
Like the aforementioned Human Robot.
Human Robot, exactly.
Yeah.
And I will say though that one of certainly not my favorite by any means, but one of my favorite beer bars, and my favorite in Philly, More Than Monks, closed several years ago. Eulogy was just
that was phenomenal.
Such a good bar.
Beerless, this thick.
Yeah,
it was
a book.
Binder.
Yeah, book.
It was a binder.
Huge, yeah. So
I went in there once. I said, "I'm going to order every beer I can't pronounce." I could barely see by the time I walked out of there.
I think Dock Street is still there.
Dock Street's still there.
They were one of my original favorites. Dock Street. I went in the '90s. At one point, they had a Sam Adams Brew House, which was an extract brewery, but they were doing some pretty good stuff there. You really couldn't go. And Monks, of course, is fantastic. Doug and I
they actually just had Pliny the Younger on tap at Monks.
You knew it was coming because Russian River had tweeted out that, "Hey, we've kegged. Pay attention to the local places that usually get it."
Mm-hmm. I think Monks sold a lot of their inventory during COVID, so it was kind of iffy if they were gonna, or we were worried anyway, whether they were going to reopen. But glad to hear they did.
And Doug just said, Doug just said, speaking of honesty, can you talk a little bit about honest craft beer reviews and why you co-created? I was getting to that, Doug. So we'll get to that in a second. And really quick, Edward Meyer says, "What's up, Dave?"
Hey, Eddie.
There you go.
Eddie, I know he retired this last year.
He did. Happy retirement, Ed.
He's a rock climber, and now it's turned into an ice climber.
Well, there you go.
You just retired, Ed. Don't kill yourself.
Exactly. So, but the Philly beer scene is great. Let's go. Before we talk about honest craft beer reviews, really quick. Let's talk about. You know what? Let's switch that up. Let's talk about honest craft beer reviews. Doug brought it up. Let's talk about it. You created Honest Craft Beer Reviews. It's a Facebook group on Facebook.
Yeah.
I am a member of the group. Dave, I believe you are as well. So, and it's a great group as well. So why don't you talk about that a little bit too?
There's someone we both know who's in it.
And Tom is also an admin with you, right? I believe.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we founded that. It was Doug and I. We founded it in 2013. I think that was about the time. And actually, it came out of another pet peeve. It's probably more prevalent then, but still see it from time to time. And I don't like the term "mommy bloggers," but I think in back in that day, that was a prevalent term for people that were getting free samples of stuff and then writing these fantastic reviews about them. Mm-hmm. We saw that with beer. There were lots of people some people were to the point where they were begging for samples. And our contention was that if you write a beer review or if you make a beer video, and you get, if the brewery comps you on the product, at the very least, you need to make your viewers aware of that or your readers aware of that. And that was one of the conditions. Because if you're getting free samples, the likelihood that you're going to be negative about the product goes downhill, because then the gravy train stops, right? And sure. I've got free samples from breweries in the past and felt obligated, but we eventually it was voluntary, and Doug and I did it, but and a few others, but we started to make donations to charity equal to the amount of the samples we got from breweries. So basically, you're not getting anything for free, so the likelihood that you're going to be negative about it declined, and then we would let people know too that, hey, I did get this from Boston Beer, or I got this from the local brewery. But I mean, there's no such thing as free beer. If a brewery gives you a product, they're expecting a review. Some breweries probably are a little bit more even-handed, and they realize that a strong or even a less than strong review can result in publicity for their brands, but they really want a glowing review. And we thought that reviewers knowing that would bump up the score, and that marketing of free samples is built into the price of every beer you buy from the brewery, and I buy from the brewery. So we're paying for that, which is fine. But hey, give me the real. Should I spend my money? I'm going to be paying for this. Is it something I should spend my money on or not?
Right.
Yeah, and I admire that. John knows this. We were going to have a brewer on the show. I ran to the brewery that night to pick up beer. I get there, and they're going to give me the beer. I'm like, no, you're going to bring that up. I support the industry. I don't leech off the industry.
That's right.
We have a podcast. We talk about the beer, but I don't want anything special.
Right.
She still, insisted on friends and family discount. Like, okay, that's fair, but still, I don't like doing that. That's not what we do. That's not what we're here for. We're here to support the industry. We buy the beer, we drink the beer, we talk about the beer.
On that note too, we there's a beer, I don't know if you want to call it group, club, whatever you want to call it, the New Jersey Craft Beer, and they have the NJCB. They have a discount card. They have a membership card, right? And a lot of breweries and restaurants and bars will actually offer discounts on their bars. I never use the card at a brewery.
Never.
I'll use the card at a restaurant. I'll use the card
yes.
at a bar. I will never use the card at a brewery.
I didn't even use it at bars because most of the bars that I drank, my friends owned.
Yeah, no. If I'm at a bar that I know the bar and I'm friends with them or whatever, I mean half the time they're picking up my tab anyway. So what am I going to do? Get a discount on what they did charge me for? No,
Yeah.
But it depends on where I'm going. But it's never at a brewery. Never.
No.
Well, they're in business. They've got to pay their employees. They've got they have a right to take a paycheck home, and
exactly.
yeah.
And the card's already done its job. It's already brought people in, but I'm not going to take any more from that.
Right.
Now, talk about reviewing, and you've been reviewing, like you said, since the 90s.
Yeah.
I've been probably just as long, probably not long.
Hold that thought. Is War of the Worlds playing on one of the TVs back there?
No. We've got a Huey landing on the building next to us.
Apparently.
My microphone picks up everything. Wait until the fire trucks go by.
I can imagine. Well, I can imagine because I hear
because you've heard it. But reviews back in the day. Remember, one of the first sites that you could go on review was Beer Advocate. They're still there,
Sure.
but that was like the main site. And what was interesting back in the day, and I don't know if you see it as much anymore because I don't review much anymore. I don't know why, but I just don't. I get to the point where I'm like, I just want to drink my fucking beer. I don't need to. I don't want to break it down. I want to taste the whole beer, and I will do it every now and then.
It's an acronym for you, right? DYFB.
Drink your fucking beer.
Drink your fucking beer. Yeah.
Hi, Gene.
He's like Joe, actually.
Joe. It's Joe. So, at any rate, I would do these reviews, and I remember kind of crapping all over a Stone beer, and it came off so piney that I thought, and I had commented that I thought they had backed a whole dump truck of Cascade hops and just poured it into the brew kettle, just like every other damn brewery out there at the time. Because remember, Cascades, everyone was using Cascades.
Yeah.
It was the darling of the brewing world, and it got to a point when you just got tired of it. And so I had someone reply to me and was going back and forth of the name Arrogant Bastard 1. I'm like, awesome. So I've got a fanboy who's now going to stick up for his favorite brewery, and we're going back and forth. And and they're being cool about it, being kind of cool about it. And I'm not being a jerk about it either. And after about 4 or 5 back and forths, the person signs it Pete. And I'm just staring at that name, Pete. Arrogant Bastard 1. Please, for the love of God, tell me I'm not arguing with Pete Cook about his own goddamn beer. And it turned out I was arguing with Pete Cook about his own goddamn beer. I was
See, there's something to be
so
said for that
embarrassing.
though, because there could be somebody that loves pine. There could be somebody that loves Cascade hops. So if you write the review in a certain way where you're not being derogatory, but you're saying there's an overwhelming amount of Cascade or pine.
No, I was being derogatory.
Well, I know you were, but I'm just saying if you do it that way, so you're not necessarily putting the product down. You're just saying, I didn't like it because this is what I was tasting. If you like that, have at it. It's for you.
But the point where I was going with that is that back then you would see the brewers and the brewery owners reply to these reviews. And now, are you still seeing that, John? You're still reviewing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't really see it on my review. I see it on Untappd, though. I see the breweries every now and then will chime in and add a comment.
It depends on the brewery. There will be, Stone's not replying to people anymore.
Einstock in Iceland is notorious for that.
Einstock, really?
Einstock, they do. You're right. They do.
When I post stuff on Untappd, they always do.
Yep.
But one thing that's interesting that you bring up about the crowd sites, and one thing so on my website I rate to style. And that tends to mean that if you're a really good Pilsner, you're going to get a higher score than you will on Untappd or the crowd sites because, and this is a pet peeve for me, is that they tend to rate absolutely, and I don't really think you can do that. You can't rate an Imperial Stout against a table beer, right?
But they also not only rate absolutely, and they don't rate globally or whatever you want to call it. They also rate to their palate. I hate when somebody that just does not like Pilsners. There could be the best Pilsner in the world. They don't like it, so they give it a 0.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they say, I don't like Pilsners, 0.5. All right, well, then don't rate it.
Right. You shouldn't. I agree with you 100%. You're not qualified to rate that style of beer if you don't like it because you're predisposed not to like it.
Yeah, this Lambic's too sour for me. I hate this.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, this IPA is too bitter.
I always tell the story, and I won't say the brewery, but I was standing at the bar at a brewery, just going back probably 3 years. And it was like late on a Thursday night. Nobody's in the brewery's open till 2 a.m. And
okay, not for nothing. I have not had Einstock reply to any of my check-ins.
Damn them. Well, because they've probably been good about it, right? They've probably been like, so there you go. Write something bad and see what they would do. Anyway, but it's probably at like 10:30, 10:45, and it's just me and the bartender. We're standing there, and these two younger guys walk in. And they're probably 23, 24, somewhere in there. But clearly one guy has been there before. He's a regular. And the other guy, he was just bringing in. It was his first time there. So they walk in, and the one guy walks up, and he orders what he wants right away, grabs his beer, and he walks away. And the other guy's standing there, and he's looking up at a tap list of 24 beers plus a couple casks, right? And the bartender, I'm BSing with him. Bartender says, give me a minute. And he walks away. He says, can I help you narrow it down a little bit? He says, yeah. She says, I'm just trying to figure out what I want. He says, well, what style is your favorite? He says, I'm a big IPA guy. I love IPAs. He says, I'll tell you what. It's slow in here. There's nobody else here. He says, I have 8 IPAs. I will give you a little sample of each. As we go along, you find one you like, I'll give you a pour. That's your pour. That's what you get. On me. We'll take care of it. He says, great. So he pours him his flagship. The first beer he starts with is his flagship West Coast IPA. He pours him a little bit of it. He takes a sip of it. He almost does a spit take. And he's like, oh, my God, this is disgusting. It's so bitter. And the guy says, I thought you said you liked IPAs. He doesn't like IPAs. He likes orange juice, right?
Yeah. Any IPAs, yeah.
Right. So
that's another one where we're get all the time that people say today anyway. IPA is a style that is not meant to be aged. I'm like, seriously? The first IPA are exactly meant to be aged. You're just drinking,
why they were invented.
Yeah. But that's
crazy. But what do you do? Doug Smith just chimed in again. He said, the merits of a beer can only be judged according to style. Michael Jackson 101.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Jackson gave us style. I mean, it was it existed, but it wasn't a widely known concept until he started writing about it.
It wasn't categorized. The one thing though about the sites like an Untappd, I don't think some people use it just to keep track of what they drank, what they liked, what they didn't like. I don't think everyone understands fully that this does impact the brewery. That people will look at the ratings. Yeah, and a lot of people don't use that. A lot of people use it as just a storage site for what they've drank. To tell themselves what they like, what they don't like.
Right.
there's nothing that Untapped says when you first log in stating this. So are they well within their right to say, oh my God, I don't like Pilsners. This is a 0.5 because I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're thinking they're storing it for them. Are they well within their rights if they don't have that knowledge and don't understand the impact that they're making on the popularity of that, or not the popularity of that person that is out there? Like, I do this all the time. I'm going out to Utah with my son. He's not a drinking age, so I'm not going to too many breweries, but I'm going out there. And what am I doing? I'm looking at the overall Untapped rating of the breweries.
Right.
Now, is that fair to the brewery to do that? Well, you would think the fanboys and the people that don't know what they're doing will cancel each other out.
Right. And then you got the mid range, exactly.
Right.
So, but it's not so much for those though. It's the newer breweries that are really being affected by that.
Yeah, but you know the guy's mommy and daddy are also going on there giving 5s to everything.
It depends on what's rated. It depends on
You
exactly.
know?
So, but the bottom line being, I've said this many times before. If you're rating a style that you don't like,
Don't
you're
rate
rating a style you don't like,
give a number.
don't give a number. Put the number in the comments for you, so you know when you go back and you look at it, you can see what you rated it. But
I'm
it's
just
not
playing
giving a
devil's
rating
advocate.
to the,
I'm just playing devil's advocate here. A lot of people don't realize.
what they're doing to the
Right.
it's business. It's
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, I mean, if look, by all means, if you love Pilsners and you hated that guy's Pilsner, rate it as you will. That's fine. I mean, maybe your palate was off that day. Maybe you just didn't like the way he brewed it. Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But if it's a style, whatever, we keep harping on Pilsners, but if it's a style you don't like, don't give it a rating, period. Put the rating in the notes. Put the rating in the comments so you're not affecting their overall score.
But the other thing that's not fair to breweries, because not everyone understands that if they're drinking a beer, that it might be the bars or restaurants' dirty line that is
This
making
is another
that beer
reason.
bad.
Right, exactly.
Most of us can taste it and go, when was the last time they cleaned their lines?
Yeah,
We know.
Or
Not
they bought
everybody knows that.
or they bought an IPA that's been sitting on a warm shelf in a liquor store for 6 months.
Right. Something
Or
like
to be
that.
fair, you're at a multi-tap and they give you the wrong beer and don't give you the one you asked for. Right?
And you're not smart enough to realize you got the
Yeah,
wrong
and
beer.
you're
Wrong beer, right? Exactly.
Can't pick up on that
It's
because
a lot
you're-
of reasons,
Yeah,
exactly.
there's loads of stuff.
Which is hopefully why hopefully they take a picture of it, right? And then the picture shows this amber-colored ale, and it's supposed to be a Pilsner.
It's not a Kolsch.
It's not right.
Well, I was actually at a brewery in New York, and I tasted this one beer, and I made a face, and the bartender asked me, well, what, don't you like it? I said, there's something really off about this beer. And to their credit, I think it was the owner or the bar manager comes around and said, I hear you didn't particularly like one of the beers. I said, no, I really think there's something off. I don't know if the line was dirty or something's wrong with the particular keg. And so he asked the beer keeper for a pour. She gives him a pour. He takes a sip of it and goes, hold on a second. He goes back. He opens the line up for a little bit, talks to the beer, talks to somebody else for a little bit. He goes, yeah, we just put this on. There's still cleanser in the line. He goes, you were absolutely right.
Lovely.
He goes, take that one off of his tab. This one's on us.
That's amazing. That's crazy. And
So you got to love when they do that,
you
right?
got to run water through that. You got to run warm water through that forever.
Yeah, that was a learning.
To the point where you can pour a glass of water out of the tap and it just tastes like water, and then you can put the beer back on.
Yeah, it was a learning moment for his person. But to their credit, they're not like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. They're like, let's find out what's going on. Let's taste the beer and see what's wrong here.
Right. That's crazy.
You're a regular there? Is that why they value?
No.
Okay.
Nope. Didn't know them at all.
I do. It's very rare, but there's been occasions where I know that Taco Mac has had the wrong beer that they've served me, or it's infected, or there's a problem with it, and they know me well enough to know that if I don't send anything back lightly, but if I do, there's something wrong, and the manager will come out and ask, okay, what's going on, what's wrong, and they'll fix it, which they should, right? You don't want to alienate your customers. So.
No, not at all.
Yep, and you also don't want to undermine the brewers who you're pouring for.
Yeah,
No.
that's true.
So anyway, all right. Hey, I got a couple questions. I had a couple things. So let's divert off of a couple of things here before we even get to our.
John's got
top
some
three.
questions.
I got some questions.
John's got some questions for John.
John's got some questions for John. Here we go. All right. First, I wasn't going to bring this up, but we've been talking about it for a couple times or whatever, and I had thought about it earlier because you're obviously from New England and you spent time in Massachusetts and so forth and so on. Plus, Sam Adams is standing right behind you. What is your all-time favorite Sam Adams beer? And Utopias cannot be one of them.
Because it's not technically a beer, is it?
That's cognac, actually. But
Sam Adams has had so many great beers over the years. I still want to say going back to that original double bock, maybe
double
because,
bock,
and they actually rolled out some iterations of it over the years that were really good. But
one of my favorites is one of those iterations
of the double bock, or
actually I thought it was a single bock. They came out with one called Cinder Bock.
Oh,
Cinder
that
bock.
yes,
the smoke box.
Beer was fantastic.
Yeah, Cinder bock's a great beer. Cinder bock's a great beer. But go ahead. Anyway, finish, John. You were saying double
they've
bock.
had a lot of interesting one-offs in the long shot line of beers too that
Sure.
they do, which is the homebrew competition beers.
Mm-hmm.
But I try to stay on top of everything that Sam Adams does because I was in at the beginning with them, and I think they're great. I think they've actually in the 90s, Jim Cook was another. He was a favorite target of the beer geeks back then. People hated him. They did an Oregon Originals line, actually, which is another of my favorite beers from them. They did a blackberry porter that was outstanding, but it got a lot. It wasn't brewed in Oregon. It was contract brewed in, I think in Cincinnati at the time. And of course, it took a lot of heat for that, but that was a great beer. But early on, you could go to a lot of places in the country where you couldn't find a craft beer, but you could get a Sam Adams, right? And what that did was it fostered an appreciation for craft beer. People started drinking better beer, and they started looking at other craft breweries. And Saranac, I think, is the same thing. They kind of did that too, and Pete's in his day.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm getting off track. But to answer your question, that double bock, probably because double bocks are my favorite style. But that was really great, and they did actually an imperial stout that was very, very good too, and a Hallertau hop cuvee, which was
I
also
remember that one.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
that's a blast from the past.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, John, what would you say to those, the younger generation that's gotten into craft beer that will say Sam Adams is not craft beer?
Then I would say, what is craft beer? My definition of craft beer is not what the Craft Brewers Association says. You get into, Wicked Weed is up in Asheville. They're still brewing great beers. To me, it's craft beer. The definition of craft beer was originally coined to compensate for the fact that microbrews were originally defined as breweries making 15,000 barrels or less. But you had all these great breweries that already, Sierra Nevada and Anchor, they were brewing more than 15,000 barrels.
Sure.
You had small breweries start to brew more than 15,000 barrels. So then it started to become like handcrafted beer, right?
Yeah.
So my answer would be, if you try it and you like it, then, and it's a quality beer made with fine ingredients and through techniques that are going to give you a good beer, then it's craft beer. Right?
Exactly. I agree 100% with that. And and I was never a proponent of melding microbrewery and craft brewery in one thing. A microbrewery can brew, up to X amount of barrels a year, and then above that you're a macrobrewery. Obviously, Sierra, Anchor, New Belgium, and on from there. Obviously, Sam Adams, Founders, all of them. They're well above that. They're not microbreweries anymore, but they're still brewing craft beer. And Sam Adams, if it wasn't for Jim Cook and Sam Adams, everybody, at least in the East, and pretty much all over the country, because Sierra had out west, obviously, but at least in the East, we would be behind where we are right now.
Yeah,
was not for Sam Adams.
I only met Jim Cook once, but and Doug was there. It was at a beer tasting in Rhode Island, and we had they actually had a number of dishes brewed with made with Sam Adams beers, actually, and he was pretty down. He was down to earth too. He was,
he's down to earth. I've met him twice. I've met him, and the one time I always say, I actually had a conversation with him at Extreme Beer Fest. I guess it was 3 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago, I had about a 15-20 minute conversation, had a beer with him, talked to him a little bit. About a half an hour, 45 minutes after I was speaking with Jim, I actually had about a 15-20 minute conversation with Sam Clagione and had a beer with him. And then about an hour or so after that, the two of them were together, and that's when they decided to get into bed with each other.
Yeah.
So I credit myself for talking to both of them that night because
Well,
that's what made
right.
them.
Okay, there you go.
Anyway, but no, I kid.
But also, you look at Jim Cook, what he did during the hop shortage.
Sure.
Right, you take the New England breweries, that were running out of hops. Jim Cook sold hops to them at his cost.
Yeah.
He didn't make any money off of it, but he wasn't going to bankrupt his brewery at it.
Not at all. No, of course, yeah. Well, I mean, you got to do the right thing, but there's a point.
But he loves craft beer, and he's gonna put. In fact, it's interesting because on that beer dinner that I mentioned earlier with Jackson, that's one of the topics we talked about. Because back in those days, Cook had the beer geeks. There were a number of them that in private circles they would kind of bash him and contract brewing and all that. And so I asked him. I said, what do you think of all that? And he loved Cook, and he thought that the craft brewing renaissance wouldn't have probably would have happened, but it wouldn't have happened as quickly without.
No,
exactly
not at all.
The point John just made would have been. I think we would have been at least 5 years behind the curve. Yeah. 5 years behind the West Coast.
Agreed, 100%. The other thing I was going to say too is just to throw that out there. Double Bock is probably my second favorite Sam Adams beer. My number one, and I've had it twice. Once was actually in the barrel room at Sam Adams in Jamaica Plain. And the other one, I actually had it. I left with it. And I had it again. I left with a growler of it, but that day. But it was a Scotch ale.
Oh, the Scotch ale.
It was Scotch ale.
Scotch ale.
But it was a Scotch ale. It was a 15+% Scotch ale, aged in 18-year-old Macallan barrels.
Jeez.
Wow.
Oh my God, this beer was insane.
I can imagine.
It was so good. I literally I had it in the barrel room. I had a couple of pours of it in the barrel room, and then I left with a growler of it. When I finished that growler, I'm not kidding you. I wanted to break that growler apart and lick the inside of it.
Wow. They made a Scotch ale in the 90s that was brewed with peat smoke malt that was very, very good. And then they made they had the Imperial series that were that they sold in 4-packs, and actually they had a stronger version of the Double Bock that they sold there, but they had a wee heavy that they did in that release too, which was outstanding. So I can only imagine.
That's when Cinderbach came out. The Wee Heavy, the Cinderbach. I think the Cinderbach was in that series.
The Cinderbach I thought was in like a
or they're the weirder bottles.
Yeah,
it was
the
weirder
a half liter. Yeah, it was.
They were their 500 ml bottles.
Yeah,
Cinderbach was in because they used to release the Double Bock.
Yeah.
They used the Double Bock in the 500 ml bottles, and it was one of those that they had. But it's a great beer. Cinderbach's a great beer.
Yeah,
my favorite Sam Adams though. Cinderbach's probably number 2 was the Triple Bock.
That was also good.
Sure.
And I also got really good memories because that's the day that I drank my bottle of it. The day I met Gene Lynch.
There you go.
So
there you go. And that was that. Yeah, I got to tell you, Triple Bock. I was fortunate enough to have Triple Bock once, and we've talked about it on the show before a couple of times. The main one, the first time we talked about it was when we had Ryan Dorchak from Cloverleaf on. The only time I ever was fortunate enough to taste Triple Bock, it was 94 Triple Bock, and it was probably about 5 years ago at Cloverleaf. And we were sitting there, BSing, me and my friend Chris were sitting there at the bar BSing with Ryan. And he says, and we had probably about 6 beers at that point. He says, hang on, I'll be right back. And he comes back with 2 bottles of Triple Bock, 94 Triple Bock. And he opens them up. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like,
don't open both.
What are you doing? He's like, relax. Clearly, he had a lot more downstairs. And he poured them up.
I got to talk to Ryan about breaking up another one of those sometime soon.
But all right, next question. We obviously have our top 3s we're doing. We foreshadowed it a couple of times, but we'll get to it. But one of the things was mentioned was 80s movies, or was movies in general. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to throw a spin in there. I already said it. 80s movies. What's your favorite 80s movie? Or give me your top 3. Why not? Give me your top 3 80s movies.
Top 3. So starting in 1980, hat would have to be Empire Strikes Back.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm a big Star Wars fan.
I told you, John.
No,
big Star Wars nerd.
That's good.
Back to the Future. Another great one. And if I had to name one more, I think it was 80s. Is They Live?
Oh God,
Was that 80s or 90s?
that's the 80s.
I think it's 80s.
Yeah, that's 80s. I
Yeah.
think John Carpenter, because you can't beat Roddy
Right.
Piper. Yeah,
No.
I came here for 2 reasons:
There you go.
to kick ass and chew bubble gum.
Chew
And
and
I'm
kick
all-
And I'm all out of bubble gum.
I'm
yeah.
all out of bubble gum, right?
Best squad.
Samurai, throw your 3 top.
You didn't
10
tell me
films
you
out
were
there.
going to do
No,
this.
I know. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just doing it.
I
mean,
gave you another list. John decided to go his own damn route.
No. This isn't top 3s. We're just spitballing right now.
Yeah,
Just
I
give
know
me your
it's
top
spitball.
3s.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to do a Star Wars. John knows damn well I'm a huge Star Wars fan.
Clearly.
But I will go with probably outside the Star Wars genre, probably my favorite sci-fi movie ever filmed, and that's Blade Runner.
Oh, that's a great choice.
Love that movie. So I'll try to avoid the sci-fi genre from here on out. Everything's such a blur. You know I don't remember these things.
Yeah, well, I know.
Now, don't make me hurt myself.
Don't overthink it. Just throw
I'm
2
gonna
movies
overthink.
out. Just throw another 2 movies out there. It's fine. We won't hold you to it. You can change them next time if we actually ever do that as a top 3. You can dive into it and,
Well, you
and
do your
dissect it then.
Do your 3, and I'll come back to mine. I'll think.
You know what? I'm a big Star Wars fan too. Empire Strikes Back was a great movie. I'm a great action film fan as well. Who doesn't? And I mean, this has been the debate for years, for many for what was it? I guess it's 34 years now, right? Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
It is a Christmas movie.
It's a Christmas movie. All right. But I'm not even going to go there. I just got to go comedies at that point. And my 3 favorite comedies from the 80s are, in no particular order, Caddyshack, Stripes, and Fletch. Those are mine.
Caddyshack was the 80s. I forgot about that. That is
It's 1980. It was
Yeah.
the first. Yeah. Caddyshack, Stripes, and Fletch. Those are my and yeah. I mean, there's many others, but top 3. Boom. I'll give you. I just got to go comedies, right there. Caddyshack, Stripes, and Fletch.
Is Boondock Saints 80s?
Yes.
Okay, throw that on my list.
Okay.
It's funny because I wear a black duster, and I came into work wearing that one day. And my boss, who's from England, looks at me and goes, "What are you, one of the Boondock Saints?" I'm like, well, there's no weaponry in here that you know of. Consequently, I got a pretty decent performance review just recently.
Very nice.
Yeah.
What you call? Give me your give me your 3rd. In fact, while you think of your 3rd, I'm going to throw Doug Smith's up there. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Uncle Buck, and Vacation. Those are 3 great movies. And if I had to throw a 4th on there, it would absolutely be Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yeah,
I know how much you love that one.
I love that movie. It's I probably watched that probably 5 times between a couple weeks before Thanksgiving and a couple weeks after Thanksgiving every year.
it's an annual Thanksgiving
It's
tradition.
an annual Thanksgiving
I
tradition.
saw it in the theater the first year it came out.
Oh yeah, but so did I.
Fell in love with it. It's
Absolutely.
a fantastic movie.
3 words for you. Those aren't pillows.
Yeah.
But anyway, Samurai, did you come up with a 3rd, or you want to tell us later?
That's hard.
Don't go
It's
nuts.
really hard.
Don't go nuts.
I'm just running through lists here thinking, oh God, no, that's a good one.
Don't dissect it. We're not doing a top 3. This is just throwing it out there.
Oh, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Ferris. All right, you got Ferris.
How do you not throw Ferris out
There
there?
you go. Ferris Bueller, you're my hero.
Oh man, Sausage King.
Let my Cameron go. There you go. Fry. Anyway, all right.
There's also Beetlejuice. You know.
There's so many. We'll do this. We'll do a top. We'll do a proper top 3, and we'll talk about and obviously
Yeah, but you
we'll
can't
get
make it
6.
just '80s movies. That's just too broad. There's too much.
We'll do top 3 comedies, top 3 80s comedies, top 3 80 action. We'll
sci-fi.
we'll work it out. We'll figure it out. But
rom-coms.
all right, now
Animes.
one last thing
Porn.
for shut up. Behind the Green Door with
That was '70s.
that was the cities.
It's sad that we all knew that. So sad.
Ms. Chambers.
Yes. Who was from Rhode
Table for
Island,
Miss
actually.
Chambers.
She's from Providence.
There you go.
Providence got something to be proud about finally.
Anyway, all right.
I love that town, but
There you
it's
go.
there. I just love the bust on it.
There you go. So did she. All right. Anyway, But one more quick thing.
Oh,
That was quick by any means, but
Forgot about Ghostbusters.
sports. Yeah, you
Oh,
did.
yeah, that's
Oh crap! How did I
Oh,
forget
that's
Ghostbusters?
yeah.
Take
Ghostbusters.
Ferris out, put Ghostbusters in.
Really? You replaced
Yeah.
Ferris with Ghostbusters? All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough.
Oh yeah. Hey,
All right.
Pete, where do these stairs go?
They go up. That's my second favorite line in the movie.
yeah.
My first favorite line is, "Listen, you smell something?" Anyway, but all right.
Ray's gone bye.
All right, all right, sports. Clearly, we don't. Are you all Boston? Have you migrated south, or are you still up north, John?
So I don't follow baseball like I did when I was a kid. I was a huge Red Sox fan as a kid.
Fair enough.
So
And
really,
as you know, Dave and I are both Mets fans. That automatically means we're both Red Sox fans as well.
oh, cool. Didn't know that. But
Yes. Number
that's
2
good.
team. The Sox.
Never been a big basketball fan. We don't have a hockey team down here. Huge Patriots fan. I never miss a game. I haven't missed a game I think I've missed one game since 2001. I just make sure I see every game.
When did Brady start?
2001.
Oh.
But I was
Coincidentally, that's when he left New England.
yeah. And my brother told me whatever you did, it's working, so don't come back. Right?
Just
So-
don't come back, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't come back. But,
I wanna-
I was a big Pats fan before that. I used to actually. My brother was working at a garage at the time, and on Sundays we'd go down and there was a place called the West Valley Inn. You could get Italian takeout, and they had sausage, peppers, and potatoes, and pasta and meatballs and sauce and all that stuff. We'd get a big spread and watch the Pats
There you go.
while he was working, and and we had some crappy teams, even going back to the 80s. We were in the
Grogan.
Super
Yeah, but you were in a
Bowl.
Super Bowl in the
Bears.
80s and in the 90s. I mean,
Yeah, and we didn't do well either time, especially the game
Bears.
against the Bears in the 80s.
Super Bowls, yeah, Super Bowl 20.
Oh, that had one of
Yeah,
the
that
that
was-
had one of the worst jokes ever. What
What's
did the
that?
Patriots have in common with the space shuttle?
Oh, please don't stop. Like,
I made them look good
Don't
for the
even finish
first,
it.
yeah, and everything. Then
Done.
I blew it.
Yeah.
all right.
Well, it's true. I mean, we were everybody was excited because they came out and we turned the ball over, which is what we were doing. We were stripping the ball, and special teams was really good. And
You got
we
the first
scored.
touchdown.
Yeah, and then after that, it was lights out.
Wheels came right off.
I got to be honest with you. I was much more happier with the Super Bowl the year after that.
Wonder why.
So,
That was at the cost of Denver, was it not?
yeah, it was. Dave and I are both Giants fans.
Wide. Right.
Okay.
There you go. No, that was 4 years after that.
Oh, that's 4 years. Oh,
Yeah, that was the first Buffalo Super Bowl. So,
that was Buffalo.
yeah, but
Oh,
no,
wasn't-
Giants kicked the crap out of Denver. Not in the first half, only in the second half. The Giants were actually losing at halftime, 10-9. But anyway, but as Dave will tell you, you see Jersey Johnny is my moniker here. It's not just because I'm from New Jersey; it's because I'm a huge jersey collector, and I'm not really a hater of any. There's only one professional sports team in all four main sports, bigger sports or whatever, that I dislike, and Dave will tell you what that is.
They've got a star on the side of their helmet.
Yeah, would it be the Dallas Cowboys show? But in any event, so I collect a lot of jerseys or whatever, and I'll just throw this up really quick right now, just for you, John. Here you go. There you go.
The person next to him is a Jets fan. by the way.
That's Jessica, and she's a Jets fan, so that's why she's doing that. But we're at
that
Gillette,
from the
I'm wearing
expression there.
I'm wearing a
Yeah,
Brady
yeah.
jersey, so there you go. So,
That's cool.
but anyway, no, I'm obviously all New York, but I don't dislike. There's really no team that other than the Cowboys, and mainly right now that's just because of their owner. But that's besides the point.
Yeah, I kind of I've lived here for 20 years, so if the Falcons aren't playing against the Patriots, then I wish them luck. Right? It's the local team. I want to see them win, but I will say that every time that the Patriots are down here, I go to the games and root for the Pats, and it's kind of worked so far. So, in fact, last November, my son and I went, and it was a great game. We picked off their starting quarterback, their backup, and then their third stringer. So
there you go.
It was lots of fun, and,
Well,
and
Well, let me ask you: were you happy with the outcome of Super Bowl 42 and Super Bowl 46? or not? So much?
The Falcons 28-3.
No. 42 and 46 were the two the Super Bowls. The Giants beat the Pats.
Oh yeah, I was happy when the Patriots beat the Falcons when we came back from 28-3.
Well, who wasn't? That wasn't a Pats fan, right?
Those were kind of painful. Those were, but hey, it happens. You can't win them all. And,
undefeated, right? I mean, every Dolphins fan was definitely rooting for the Giants that day.
Yeah,
So.
Eli Manning had our number, and the Dolphins usually have our number. They did this year twice. They beat us.
Just remember when
Mac Jones is. I think not just because
John, we are degrading into tomorrow's sports podcast.
We do a sports podcast.
Stop it. John, if you get him on sports, he will keep going on sports.
I'll
remind him.
Sports and beer, though.
They go. That's why we started this, right?
It's a
Bearcast. Yeah, we do. Yeah, there's the sports podcast. It was originally the Locker Room sports podcast as well, but it's now changed to the Get On With It sports podcast only because we all need to
now you know why we
get on with it. Exactly. So there you go. All right, fair enough. All right, there we go. Let's really quick before we do the top threes, and then we'll wrap up the show at that point. Before we do the top threes, I want to go back to some OG stuff. Let's talk about some old time. Like what do you, John? What do you miss about craft beer from 20 years ago and back? If anything, what are some things that you miss about?
Well, for me, and I think a lot of us that have been in this for a long time, the adventure part of it is gone. There's not many styles that I haven't tried before. Even in the early days, I could. There was a brewery that I had never tried before and I wanted to try, and I just don't get excited about them anymore because they don't seem to offer as much of, that element of the new, the untried, and something that's just outside the norm.
Right.
And that part of that comes with, if you've been doing something for a long time, that's going to happen. And I think, there's still those, I don't get those wow moments where you find a beer that's just so amazing that, it's even some of the whales out there. And I don't like that term whales either. I'll tell you, that's, you get a hold of them, but it's still, you've just had a beer from your local brewery that's not that different from it,
Right. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, absolutely. You're right.
Whales are built on reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
More than anything. But I know what you're saying, the adventure of trying all these new things, but there's always new breweries open. There's always new beer cultures to explore.
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait to get to Asheville later this year. I told John the Airbnb that I got, I'm half a mile away from 22 breweries, like smack dab in the middle of a circle of breweries. Oh, yeah. And so I love exploring the beer cultures. I love exploring the breweries themselves. When we get to the top threes, I'll speak a little bit more about this. But also, those beers we'll have every now and then that are the wows are the styles that are coming back, and having an American brewery brew them correctly. When I find a dark English mild that's brewed to style and perfectly, that for me is a wow moment. So I guess it's like, for me, that's where I now find the adventure, finding these beers coming back.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I don't enjoy and I do look forward to those types of experiences. I do look forward to going to a new brewery or going to Taco Mac, and sometimes I check their draft list and they've got that. I'm there. I got to go. But it's just not the same as it was, and it's like first time I went to Victory or Great Lakes or getting a new beer. At Trinity Brew House in Providence in those days, that they just put something interesting on, and I'd never had anything like it before, and that it's still fun, but not quite as fun as it was in those days.
I agree with you on that. Because look, there's so many breweries out there right now, right? You can like Jess and I we'll pick a direction, we'll just drive and we'll go. Last weekend we went to Lancaster. Not this past weekend, but the weekend before. We went to Lancaster. I'm sorry, as far as people from Lancaster call it Lancaster. It's Lancaster. So, and I went to 12 breweries that I hadn't been to before. Well, 10 breweries I hadn't been to before, and then 2 that I had. But I had the beer anyway. And there were a handful of them that were fantastic, and I loved every minute of what we're doing. But it wasn't the same. It didn't incite the same reaction as it did 20 years ago, because it was like you said, it was more exploration. It was more, it's expected now.
But I think
And you had to work more at it. There
You had
weren't
to
as
work
many
at it more.
breweries.
Yeah.
And,
But I think
and-
that's the word. Because John, you used adventure, but Johnny, exploration.
Right.
The exploration's kind of over now, right? There's not much more to explore except a new brewery, except for that. The adventure of those new beers. Those new beers. There's nothing new to us anymore, right? So we gravitate to those beers that have like purple yams in them, or and don't laugh. One of my favorite beers I ever had from Smug Brewing had purple yams.
I had it too.
Delicious.
You brought me one.
Yeah, I brought you one. It was fantastic beer. So that's why we gravitate to these crazy wackadoo beers that the breweries put out, because it's something different, something that'll challenge us. Whereas what we were talking earlier about that any IPA that oh my god this is great. So they added some Yugadot hops to this same thing, and they're calling it a different beer.
Right.
It's just, I think that has sucked the life out of the adventure. Right. Whereas everyone's stuck into these styles because they've got, let's face it, they got to pay the bills.
Yep.
The NEIPA set. Right. Everyone loves those. John, if you remember, I put up to the group this one group that we're in Facebook, that where I think now, can I have an NEIPA is now kind of the, new version of I'll have a Bud, because it's what everyone's used to. It's what everyone's comfortable with.
Right. And we also
It's
said
a go-to.
we actually went beyond that, and we said if somebody today is ordering an IPA, they're ordering, or I can't say ordering. If somebody wants an IPA today, they want a New England IPA. They don't want a West Coast IPA, or for that matter, even an English IPA. If they say I want an IPA, they want a New England IPA. If they're gonna want a West Coast or an English whatever, they're gonna have to ask specifically for that. If they want an IPA, it's gonna be hazy.
But that change in the sense of adventure comes with experience. It's still there for the younger beer drinkers.
It's adventure for them too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. On Untapped, I remarked on this. The guy had posted a rating on a Vienna lager, and somebody, one of his friends, posted, "Oh, you know what? I've never had a Vienna lager before." And then later on comes back with a comment that I went and got a Vienna lager. It was fantastic. So
that's great to see that.
That's good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. That's awesome.
But and Bruguru will know this. Well, no, it depends on how much time you spent back in New England. When you go to New England, back to those NEIPAs, when you look at the ratings, when you look at a brewery's ratings, if they've got a lot of NEIPAs, they're going to have some pretty high ratings, because no one loves NEIPAs more than New England does. And it's almost to the point where they've completely forgotten what a Western IPA is.
So nobody likes New England IPAs more than New England?
Yeah, pretty much. You would think that would go without saying, but I said it. Scintillating. But no, my point is, like, back to this brewery. I don't want to keep coming back to Smug, but they have two really good IPAs. And one's called Driving Miss Hazy, and that has got a fantastic rating. The other one is called Last Look. It's a West Coast style IPA. It's a fantastic beer. The rating on it's so low because you're in New England. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for the NEIPA. They want that haze. They want that softness. They're not looking for that bitterness. But this is a beer you can see through. This is beer that hits you with bitterness. Yep. This is kind of more of an old school IPA. So I'm just bolstering your point, John. When people think they want an IPA, they're thinking any IPA.
Yeah, that's true. And that's not anything new either. I mean, back in the 90s, I remember when the West Coast was putting out all these, resiny, piney, citrusy IPAs. On the East Coast, it was more of the classic English style, like Brooklyn IPA and some of the other breweries, and people didn't want that. They wanted the new thing. They wanted those West Coast IPAs.
They wanted the grass. They wanted the earth. They wanted they wanted all of that.
Yeah. I would love to give one of the NEIPA drinkers palate wrecker, and then just film their face.
Yeah,
or that would even better. Did you ever have Revolution Unsessionable?
That would have not had.
It's a 10% Imperial IPA. It's 100 IBUs.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's right up there with the The Maharaja.
Maharaja. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, drink that thing. You're not tasting anything for about
Yeah,
3 days.
yeah, exactly. That's the last beer. If you're going to have that, you need to have it last.
It's
You know.
the Avery Maharaja you're talking
That's
Avery
about.
the one.
Maharaja, Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and the Revolution Unsessionable kind of slots in that.
Yeah, if you're ever mad at your tongue for something and want to punish it, grab
that.
Maharaja. It'll
There
tear
you
it
go.
up for you.
All right. Hey, let's do our top threes.
Sure.
Silence on the other end. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, our top three list for this week. And I'll just, as we let everybody know each week, and we're letting John know, we do top threes. Why do we do three? With two reasons. One, when Dave and I first started the podcast, before we started actually having guests, we did a top three list, or we did our top whatever list. It was just the two of us, and we were paying homage to 1933, the repeal prohibition. 33, that's 2 threes. He and I, top threes. So we went that. Plus, if we did a top 10, it would take too damn long. So top threes, there you go. Our top three list this week is top 3 favorite Rhode Island breweries.
Wonder why.
I wonder why. Well, John was born and raised in Rhode Island.
He's born in Massachusetts.
No, he's born in Rhode Island.
That's true. What?
Moved to Massachusetts for a little bit and raised in Rhode Island. So born and raised in Rhode Island, and Dave lived in Rhode Island for a year.
A little over a year.
A little over a year. So there you go. Top 3 favorite Rhode Island breweries. And oddly enough, we have yet to do top 3 favorite Rhode Island breweries. And
Even though we've had a bunch of them on.
We've had a bunch of them on. Now, Dave and I, this does not apply to John, but Dave and I will not be listing any brewery that we've had on the show. So that's where we're not. So
we can't be.
We may very well have had them as one of our top threes, but we're not listing them. Any brewery that includes Crooked Current, that includes 12 Guns, that includes
Lops.
Lops, that includes Providence. What else? Is that it?
No, it's got to be more.
No, there's one or two other ones. Anyway, none of that we had on the show are included in our list, but this doesn't apply to John. But anyway, top 3 favorite Rhode Island breweries. John, please, as the guest of honor, go first.
Okay, well, this is very tough. There's a long list of honorable mentions, Foolproof and Smug and Coastal Extreme and the Union Station and Coddington and Proclamation and so many more. But I have to, for my first choice, I would have to say, because I love the history of beer so much, Narragansett. And also because, we actually get Narragansett here in Georgia. So a lot of the beers we get, to be fair, are not brewed in Rhode Island. They're brewed in Rochester, New York, right? But I do like the classics. The Narragansett lager, it has to be accepted for what it is, right? It's an American light lager, but it's great, ice cold to suck down watching the Patriots kick somebody's butt, right? Or even if you're not kicking somebody's butt. But they do a lot of, they do the Autocrat coffee milk.
Yeah,
it's a good beer. That's a good beer.
I like Autocrat a lot.
Autocrat coffee milk is a Rhode Island. It's the state drink, right? So
I actually have a bottle of Autocrat syrup in the fridge right now.
There you go. You should get a medal for that. That stuff is great. I get it from Amazon and pay through the nose for it, but I stock up when I go to Rhode Island.
Yeah, I brought it down from Rhode Island.
But again, the Fest beer is a very good beer. A lot of the seasonals that they make are very decent.
And who doesn't want to crush a Narragansett lager like Quint?
There you go. Crush it like Quint. Yeah.
Don't forget about the Dells. The Dells
Shandy.
Dells Shandy. Yeah, sure.
Shandy.
I miss Dells lemonade, and that's as close as I'm going to get down here.
There you go.
Oh yes.
So they're probably the top. Trinity Brewhouse would be number 2 for me because I love their beer. I think it's great. To be fair, it's been again 5 years probably since I've had it, and but in the 90s it was a regular stop for me. Sean Larkin was the brewer at the time. Sean and I, when I was writing for Yankee Brew News, he was a great guy. Used to talk to him all the time, and that leads right into 3, which is Revival Brewtopia. I know Brewtopia closed in Cranston. But I think the Revival they're doing now, and their beers are back in Providence. They got a location there. It's Sean again. There you go.
It's drinking out of Revival.
Yeah. So and I got a Brewtopia glass that I brought back from the brewery, but I also brought a lot of bottled beer back from Revival when I went there. So
There you
I
go.
think for me, it's a very tough call because, like I said, Coddington is very close too because they've had some fantastic beers. Over
one of the
years.
best blueberry beers I've ever
Yeah,
had.
and yeah. They actually, I think they modeled it off of Boston Beer Works and their blueberry and what they did.
Boston Beer Works
watermelon.
blueberry is very good. And by the way,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you know this. Boston Beer Works is gone.
Really,
They're
Boston
done.
Beer Works
They're done.
and Salem Beer Works too, or all of them.
Done. They're all done. And I didn't know that. And I was actually up. We were in Boston in August, and we were by Fenway. We're walking up, and we're like, yeah, let's go get a couple beers. Let's go get a blueberry and whatever else over at Boston Beer Works. Walk around a corner, and it had just happened not that long before. Boom.
COVID
Sign posted in
thing,
the
or-
window. I guess it stemmed from the pandemic, but they closed all locations. Done.
Wow, that's
They're
sad.
done.
Yeah, I never heard.
And Boston Beer Works blueberry was my second favorite blueberry anywhere. My first favorite is Atlantic, is Bar Harbor blueberry.
Yeah, the Coddington, just like Boston Beer Works and Salem Beer Works, would actually put blueberries in the glass and they would float up and down on the carbonation.
Boston Beer Works. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you finish the beer and then you eat the blueberries. It's great.
Yeah, the other thing I appreciate about Coddington was it was one of the few places that you could get the British style IPA.
Yes, they were very good with their traditional
Very good.
styles. Yeah.
So, all right, cool. Dave, your top three, please.
Was that three?
Narragansett, Trinity, and Revival.
Okay. So my three. Well, you want to throw Doug's three up there since?
What's that?
Doug put.
I will do that last.
You're gonna do that last.
I will do that last.
Well, I had a lot of honorable mentions. Some I'm going to leave.
Shocker.
Yeah, I'm going to leave some of them aside because John will mention them for us. I gotta give a shout out to Bravo. Bravo's up in the northwest corner of the state. So, and they're doing German styles up there, and they're doing them rather nicely.
Right.
They're relatively new. I think they've only been there a couple of years. Got to give them a shout out. No, I got to give Proc. In Proclamation, they expanded. They're in their second space. And John knows this, when I talk about favorite breweries, I don't talk about just the beer. I talk about the hang, the culture there, the staff, the clientele, the whole overall feel of it. Mm-hmm. So Proclamation being that kind of like throwback 80s thing that they got going there with the video games and everything.
Sure.
They're lamps. Their lamps are those little question mark boxes that Mario would hit and get coins out of. Yep. Or, it's you gotta love that. So I love that about Proc. But those are not my top three. One is a newer one. Six Pack Brewing. Mark out of Six Pack is a technician. He really knows how to brew clean beer. He really knows what he's doing. They're small. You go in, you know anything about beer, he'll talk to you for hours. Mm-hmm. And Six Pack is not named after a six pack of beer because he sells in 4-packs, of course. He's got 6 dogs. So he's got 6 core beers named after each one of his dogs. And he keeps these six beers and he just changes that particular beer. It's still named after that dog. But Mark really knows what he's doing. I got to throw Buttonwoods up there. Buttonwoods is kind of it's got a bohemian feel to it in a sense. It's kind of it's in an old warehouse. They've done nothing to spruce the place up. It looked like they just went garbage picking to get some of the furniture in there, and I love that. They do some big stouts in there, and they get very adventurous with their styles and what they throw out there, and I respect what they do. Always had a good time every time I went to Buttonwoods. And kind of in this as more of an honorable mention as well, as I do like Long Live, but Long Live, the only thing I don't like about Long Live is in their newer space it kind of has that hipster feel to it. It's always really crowded, but I do love their beer. But number one, and it was one of your honorable mentions, John, these guys.
Smug.
Yeah, and it's probably because I live 4 blocks away from them, so I was there all the time. It was the first place when I moved to Rhode Island that I walked into, and they knew who I was when I walked back in. They've got
They all said Norm when you walked in.
something like that.
Yeah.
Shout out to Aunt Allie and Andrew. They were the two behind the bar. Rob, the owner. He takes a lot of risks with some of the stuff he does. Sometimes it pays off. This really paid off for him. Brewing this beer got him so much publicity, and he likes to mess around with things, throw some interesting things out there. Sometimes it's a fail. I'll say that right off. But hanging in that brewery is really a lot of fun. They make you feel at home. There's always laughter. I was always there on trivia night as well. It was always a blast. They've always got something going on.
There you go.
So, and there was a time where during COVID, when everything was shut down and they were just selling cans out the front door, Andrew was the one selling the cans. And even when I was out and about, just on my bike or whatever to get out, he was like the one human being I saw more than anybody. So it was kind of like a lifeline to humanity, was that brewery for a while.
Yeah.
So it might be more of an emotional pick, but I did really appreciate their beer as well.
Very nice.
So.
Awesome. There you go. All right, I'll rattle off mine really quick. Mine are a little bit different. Here's the thing: I've been to Rhode Island a couple of times for hitting up breweries and everything else. I've drank more beer that Dave sent me and brought back for me than I actually have. Well, probably maybe even or whatever. But in any event, it's been a while. It's been a minute since I've been up there. So there's a lot of breweries that have opened up that obviously fill the bill, so to speak. The last time I actually spent any surmountable amount of time in Rhode Island visiting breweries was 4.5 years ago ish, so a little over 4 years ago. So anyway, I'll give a couple honorable mentions, which is a mix of a couple breweries that I was at, plus a mix of a couple breweries that I've had a bunch of beer from but have not been to. And Dave didn't mention this before, but he and I were both going back and forth, and it's like an overall rating. The beer, the vibe, the actual brewery, the experience, so forth and so on, is kind of where I'm taking it from. Long Live, I'll mention, it's not on the list, but it's honorable mention. Buttonwoods as well. Smug, haven't been obviously, and as John said, Foolproof as well. Good little place. Some really tasty beers.
Another Pawtucket Brewing. Another Pawtucket Brewery.
Another Pawtucket Brewery, yeah. As John said, also Revival, and that was his number one or whatever. I haven't been in a new location, which is from what whatchamacallit said. Efren said is right near him. I mean, they're right there in
right next door. Actually,
right next door.
Sean helped them get that spot.
Help them get the spot, exactly. And they moved from when they moved from Cranston, and you had brought back a couple things too from Shades On.
Oh God, yeah, Shades On does some great German styles. They're Schwartz beer.
Yep, exactly. So, but anyway.
And Shades On moved into the spot Proclamation was in when Proclamation moved.
There you go. Fair enough. And Proc, of course, and everything else. But my top three, based on not just the beer, but where I visited and everything else, I'm actually going to throw Gray Sail out for a number three.
That's a hell of a tap room.
Yeah, they have it's really wild too. It's in like an old mansion. And you sit there and get it. And the grounds are cool too. And then next door is the actual brewery.
And the thing is with Gray Sail is it's funny because when I start talking about Rhode Island breweries, I always forget Gray Sail because in my
they're almost in Connecticut, right?
Yep.
Yeah. But
you can walk to Cottrell Brewing from there, which I believe they've closed.
Yeah. And Gray Sail's Dave's Coffee Stout is amazing that they do too.
Oh, thank you.
What's that?
Well, thank you. But Dave's Coffee is an institution in Rhode Island.
Sure, absolutely. My number two is, and Dave will tell you too, they're not in the same space they used to be that they started in Ravenous. When I first went to Ravenous, they were brewing some pretty interesting stuff, but it was on a small system, right? Yep. We pull in a lot. We're looking for the place. We can't find it. We're go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Can't find it anywhere. All of a sudden, we notice as we're passing this one door with these little Home Depot letters that say Ravenous. It's not even. It's on this gray door, like the steel door, tiny little door. We're like, I look at Jess and I'm like, one and done. We walked out of there 3 hours later. The place was so cool inside once we walked in.
It is, but from the outside, it looks like a murder shack.
It looked like a murder shack from outside, right? But and my number one, and nobody's mentioned it. I'm the only one to mention it.
I
You
stayed
deferred
away
to
from
me,
this one.
I know.
I deferred to you on this one.
Tilted Barn. The Bruin. They have a new space. The old space was, I think, really cool. The barn was tilted. It was like, you stand up on that. And Dave even said, he said when he first walked into the old space, it was an old barn. And Tilted Barn is it's a brewery built on a Christmas tree farm, basically.
It's a Christmas tree farm, yeah.
Yeah. And he said, I would never go up on the upper platform or whatever in that barn because it looks like it's going to fall.
Close to collapsing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've been up there. It's pretty cool. So, but the beer is great. They're brewing great beer, and the new space is amazing as well. So
I was really worried when I found out that they were moving, that they wouldn't be able to keep that kind of barn feel, the hometown feel. And you go in, yeah, there's definitely a new coat of paint sense to this.
Right.
But they did a great job with the space. They've got a big lawn. You can still visit with the ass. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about the donkey that they have there. You can still go down to the fence. My first time at Tilted was when they were in the old barn. I grabbed a flight, and I found out you could wander around the damn grounds with the flight. So I went to my car that was sitting right next to the fence, and I drank my beer, and the donkey came up, and I'm sitting there having a beer with the donkey.
there you go.
I did not give the donkey beer.
That's a good thing. My first time at Tilted Barn too, there was a food truck outside. I had one of the best grilled cheese sandwiches I've ever had at that food truck that was on the ground. So anyway, I'm going to throw Doug Smith's top threes up there. He's got a couple comments we'll post here. He says, first of all, his top three Rhode Island breweries are Smug, Proclamation, and out of respect for old school Rhode Island beer history, Narragansett. There you go. So,
yeah.
And then he went on to say, the Guild's new Warren, Rhode Island location is fantastic. Grace Sale of Rhode Island, another honorable mention. There you go. We agree with that.
Now the Guild in Pawtucket was a great place to hang out.
Yep.
They also carry night shift beers, Johnny.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah. Carry night shift beers there. And they always, they'd have a band, you'd have a food truck outside, or sometimes you'd have a pop-up kitchen inside. Mm-hmm. Oh, my God. I loved it. I loved it there.
It's cool there. And he said, was at Ravenous Week last week, and yes, Tilted Barn is fantastic. And then once again, he said, was at Ravenous last week, love Tilted Barn. There you go. So he's commenting,
it's just fixing his
comment. There you go. And as far as Samurai said with Night Shift, John, I'm not sure. You obviously you spent some time up there, and as far as your not New England beers, but your Massachusetts beers, for instance, I had a Trillium beer tonight. Treehouse is great. My favorite Massachusetts brewery is Night Shift. They brew so many different styles, all well. Treehouse is actually working their way into that because they're brewing last fall. They brewed a ton of lagers, and very well, as you would expect.
Yeah.
But Night Shift still, to me, is my favorite Massachusetts brewery. I don't know if you want to weigh in on that. I don't know where you're at because you said it's been about 5 years since you've been up in New England.
Yeah, I do like Treehouse. I've got their stuff in beer trades. Jack's Abbey is
Jack's Abbey's amazing too. Yeah,
lagers that they do. But Trillium, I haven't come across any of their beers.
Yeah, their new lagers
on my radar.
Mm-hmm.
Their new lagering program is fantastic.
Treehouse,
yeah.
It's fantastic. I had a dark check lager up there. November, I was up in Boston. We hit Treehouse on the way back and got a pour of their dark check lager that they had, and they had a slow pour tap, and the marshmallowy, pillowy head. It was so well brewed. It was so good. But again, Night Shift is definitely up there for me. Anyway, cool. All right, Dave, you have any other questions for the gentleman?
Oh.
That would be you.
Aware of. No, I'm not a gentleman. You mean Mr.
John
Staradumsky?
is a gentleman.
Yes, he is a gentleman.
He's a gentleman, yes.
Well, as the Three Stooges used to say at the mention of that word, who walked in, right? So
right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I think we've covered quite a bit, and I'm sure. But so the whole thing about having a John Staradumsky on the show, having a brew guru on the show, is we go through our normal routine. What's the first beer you had? How'd you get an entry? And let's follow you through.
Sure.
Whereas we've got someone on the show who's got a depth of knowledge who, by just going through on the show, we'll call it an introductory show to John Staradumsky, because we're not even scratching the surface by what we've talked about. We could have other shows with John where if we target and put it into one particular area, we're going to get much deeper into the craft beer world from back in the day. And maybe we need to plan to do that.
I think we need to plan to do that.
We'd love to.
I think we need to plan to do that.
This has been fun. I really enjoyed it.
Get really deep into those days, what it was like, because we do have. Okay, let's face it. Most of our listeners are our age.
we have some that are younger.
We have some that are younger,
mm-hmm.
and I just love these kinds of talks. Like even with Tony Drury, with Tom Mullaville, where there's an insight as to what the craft beer world used to be like. And of course, they're all going, yeah, okay, boomer, not realizing we're not boomers. Boomers don't drink craft beer. What it was like and what pathways led to what they enjoy now.
Right.
And it's not that we forged it,
mm-hmm.
but we were there, we saw it.
Right.
Well, we helped forge it, right? Because we drank beers.
We drank a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely helped forge it. Absolutely helped forge it. We did. And I definitely think we should plan on doing an I don't want to say OG, just doing an old school throwback kind of this is what it was like kind of show. And I think that'll work really, really nicely. And we should pick specific beers to drink that kind of throw back to that too when we do the show.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We should all start off with the one that kicked it off, Boston Lager.
We can should all start off with a Boston Lager. We'll take a couple Sam Adams on the show. Cool. All right. One more comment from Doug Smith. He said, "Great show. You've talked more than you drank." Yes, we definitely did.
Doug, we didn't
that
advertise.
Doesn't happen often, let me tell you. But
we just didn't tell you.
Yeah, I actually opened a third. This is actually a double IPA from Brick City.
There you go.
And I'm almost done with it. So,
all right. Yeah, we'll definitely, John, stick around. Don't go anywhere. We're going to talk after we sign off, and we'll put that show together, so to speak, too. So
John's going to do the spiel now,
and we'll do the spiel. There we go. All right, don't go anywhere.
Don't blink.
We'll be right back. There you go. Anyway, we'll wrap the show up for today. We want to thank everybody for watching, and for those of you just listening to the audio podcast, thanks for listening. Don't forget to visit our website, www.lagerroom.com. That's LAGERROOM.com. And please remember, like us and follow us on all of our social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and, of course, our YouTube channel. All of them are at The Lager Room. Remember, we go live with the video podcast on both Facebook and YouTube every Tuesday night around 6:30 Eastern Time. And for those of you that just want to listen to the audio podcast, you can do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music Podcasts, and iHeartRadio as well. And
John, did you know that your voice is going to be on that many platforms?
There you go. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to one or more of those feeds, and you'll never miss a show. Again, thanks for following along with us. Have a great rest of your week. Have a wonderful weekend. Drink a lot of beer, but drink responsibly, and we will talk to you soon. Take care, folks. Cheers.
I'm out of beer.
You'll have to get another.
Oh, good thing the fridge is right there.
There you go.